Before we begin, I want you to do something deceptively simple. Picture your mind as a quiet room. No clocks, no phones, no audience, just a chair by a window, a small table, and light moving across the floor as the sun crosses the sky. That room, your inner room, was once your sanctuary. You went there as a child without trying. The field behind the house, the taste of rain, the slow wonder of clouds. Somewhere along the way, you stopped visiting. Not because the room disappeared, but because you cluttered it with noise. You let other voices rent space there. You allowed untrained impulses, petty fears, and second-hand opinions to drag furniture through the doorway and scrape the walls. You didn't notice at first. Weeks became months, months became years, and now when you try to sit in your own chair, the room feels crowded. You can't find your breath. You call it stress, you call it burnout, you call it just how things are. But the truth is simpler and harder. Your mental peace wasn't stolen, it was traded, one tiny compromise at a time. The Stoics had a way of pressing a finger on the sore truth and holding it there. They didn't build castles of words to escape pain. They built tools to meet life directly. They taught that peace is not a prize you win when the world behaves. It's a skill you practice regardless of how the world behaves. If your inner room is noisy, the work isn't to silence the world. It's to teach the mind how to host reality with discipline and dignity. Today, I want to help you reclaim that room, not with a slogan, not with a hack, with a sincere audit of habits that you might be tolerating right now, habits that quietly, relentlessly erode your mental peace. You don't need to adopt a new personality. You don't need to move to a monastery. You need to see clearly, because once you see clearly, the grip loosens. Listen closely as if this were a private conversation, because it is. I'm talking to the version of you that is tired of negotiating with the same problems, of repeating the same stories, of dosing yourself with short-term comforts that leave long-term fractures. If you stay with me, you will leave with language and practice, with a frame that honors what the Stoics honored, the sovereignty of your attention, the discipline of your choices, and the courage to live by standards you respect. This is not a lecture, it's a homecoming. Let's walk back into that inner room together and start removing the furniture that doesn't belong to you. The first habit that destroys mental peace is the worship of uncontrolled thoughts, what many call overthinking, but what the Stoics would name for what it is: refusing to govern the only kingdom you truly own, your mind. Overthinking masquerades as care. I'm just being thorough, you say, while your thoughts circle the same problem like vultures exhausted from hunger, yet unable to land. You spin scenarios that never happen, rehearse conversations that never occur, suffer consequences for decisions you have not made. The mind, untamed, is a bad neighborhood after dark. You shouldn't wander there alone. The Stoic antidote isn't to stop thinking. Reason is sacred. It's to give thought a supervisor. Ask, is this within my control? If yes, act. If no, release. This is not passive. It's precision. Most of what steals your peace is your imagination performing unpaid overtime. To dismantle overthinking, practice creating edges. Set a deliberate time window for pondering a problem. Use a small timer or the length of a cup of tea. During that time, you think with a pen. Why a pen? Because writing forces thought to slow down enough to meet reality. You ask, what are the facts? What's my sphere of control? What one action could improve this by 1% today? When the timer ends, you end. You let the decision stand, or you schedule a return. The rest of the day, when the mind tries to reopen the case, you answer like a calm judge. This court is not in session. Over time, the mind learns that you are not its captive. You are its commander. The reward is not the absence of thought, but the presence of order. Peace is not empty. It's organized. The second habit that erodes mental peace is comparing your life to the highlight reels of others. Comparison is a thief, yes, but more specifically, it's a subtle act of self-abandonment. You stop living your actual day and start living an imaginary scoreboard. The Stoics would call it a confusion of externals. You start to measure your worth against what is never truly yours. Other people's opinions, fortunes, bodies, timelines. You scroll through curated proof of happiness and interpret it as evidence of your inadequacy. But here is a principle you must carve into the doorway of your mind. External things don't add to you. You add to them. A house is not security without your ability to live simply. A title is not honor without your character. A partner is not love without your capacity to show up with courage. When you forget this, you surrender your peace to reflections on glass. To dismantle comparison, you need an anchor practice, an inventory of your own sufficiency. Each morning, before the world tells you who you should be, list 3 worthy aims for the day that depend only on your choices. Speak truth in one hard moment. Exercise my body for 20 minutes with presence. Complete the next ugly inch of this project. And each night, measure only against those, not against someone's vacation, not against an algorithm's applause. Your dignity is a contract with your own effort. Another tactic: reframe envy as information. When you feel a sting seeing someone's achievement, don't drink the poison. Extract the message. Ask, what value of mine is this pointing to? Maybe your envy means you value creative autonomy or physical vitality. Good. Use that clarity to guide action. The Stoics would say, turn impressions into judgments, and judgments into deeds. Envy dies in the face of honest labor. Peace returns when you stop outsourcing your worth. The third habit that quietly ruins mental peace is surrendering your mornings to the chaos of other people's agendas. A device beeps, your hand reacts, and like that, you are a citizen of other minds' emergencies. There is a difference between living by design and living by default. The Stoic morning isn't austere for show. It's structured to protect the first hour when your mind is soft clay. When you touch a screen before you touch your breath, you trade serenity for stimulation. Your nervous system learns to chase, not choose. You think you are catching up, but you are actually starting behind, because you forfeited authorship over the tone of your day. To reclaim the morning, you don't need a 3-hour ritual. You need one non-negotiable boundary. The first 60 minutes are for steering, not scrolling. Sit up. Feet on the floor. Ask the question Marcus Aurelius asked himself. What is within my power today? Write it down, then move your body. This can be a 10-minute walk, a set of push-ups, a few stretches. The body is not a separate creature you drag behind your mind. It is the mind's laboratory. Finally, read, just a page, something that calls you upward. This does not have to be philosophical. It can be a poem. What matters is this: you choose the first voice, because first voices echo. If your first voice is a headline, you will live in reaction. If your first voice is your own deliberate intention, Your day becomes a mission, not a marketplace. Peace needs a porch. Make your morning that porch. The fourth habit that dissolves mental peace is treating time like a landfill and attention like confetti, what we politely label procrastination and distraction, but which the Stoics would call an offense against your own nature. You don't postpone a task, you postpone a life. The ugly truth is that procrastination is not laziness. It is fear dressed as comfort. Fear of imperfect work, fear of judgment, fear of starting small. And distraction is not harmless. It's a tax you pay forever, with no receipt. Every time you allow your attention to be hijacked, you train the brain to prefer novelty over depth. Peace cannot live when nothing ever gets finished. The remedy is twofold: reduce friction and reduce fantasy. Reduce friction by breaking the task into the smallest visible action you can complete in under 2 minutes. Not write the proposal, but open the doc and write one messy paragraph describing the problem. Not get in shape, but put on shoes and step outside. You might roll your eyes at the smallness, but understand, momentum is a moral force. The Stoics taught that excellence is built brick by brick. Small acts are not small when you commit to them relentlessly. Reduce fantasy by divorcing your labor from your ego. You are not writing to be admired. You are writing to be useful. You are not exercising to be envied. You are exercising to be strong enough to serve. When labor regains purpose, it loses terror. Keep a done list, not just a to-do list. At day's end, list what you completed. Your mind learns that your choices make a mark on the world. That's where peace hides, in the alignment between what you value and what you do when no one is watching. The fifth habit that corrodes mental peace is living as a permanent people-pleaser. This is not kindness. It is self-erasure. You are not being generous when you say yes to everything. You are outsourcing your boundaries and hoping others will be more responsible with your life than you are. The Stoics were not rude, they were clear. They practiced justice without agreeing to every demand. The world needs your contribution, not your compliance. When you cannot utter an honest no, resentment breeds in the basement of your heart, and resentment is heavy. It weighs down your sleep, poisons your conversations, and whispers bitterness into moments that should be clean. The cure is the courage to disappoint the wrong people so you can honor the right commitments. Start with language. Replace vague apologies with firm decisions. Instead of, "I'm so sorry, maybe I can squeeze it in," say, "I appreciate the invitation. I can't take this on and still keep my promises elsewhere." No essays, no drama, no hints. Notice what happens in your body when you speak like this. A mix of fear and relief. That is the feeling of a boundary being born. Next, pre-commit your time. Fill your calendar with the true essentials: work that matters, people you love, recovery you need. When an ask arrives, you are not deciding in the moment. You are consulting a plan you already respect. The Stoics would say, prefer what is up to you, the quality of your yeses and nos, over what is not, other people's approval. Remember, every yes is a no to something else. Choose consciously. Peace cannot coexist with chronic, unexamined agreement. The sixth habit that steals mental peace is carrying grudges as if they were armor. Resentment feels like a shield. If I stay angry, I won't be hurt again. But it functions like a chain. You drag yesterday into today, and the weight is yours, not theirs. The Stoics taught the practice of reframing injuries as information. This person revealed their character. Now I adjust mine. This is not capitulation. It is conservation of energy. Forgiveness, in the Stoic sense, is not declaring unjust things just. It's releasing the demand that a different past be delivered to you. You refuse to make your serenity dependent on someone else's apology clock. Begin with the hardest truth. You are responsible for your attention. When the memory returns, you pause and name it. There is the old wound. Then you ask, what is mine to do? Often the answer is, reset the boundary, end the contract, make the phone call you have avoided, get practical about distance. Forgiveness does not eliminate consequence, it eliminates obsession. Write a letter you never send. In it, tell the truth unflinchingly, and then write the line, I choose peace over proof. You aren't forgiving to let them off the hook. You are forgiving to get off the hook that is lodged in you. And if reconciliation is possible and wise, pursue it calmly. If not, let your healing be quiet and decisive. Peace thrives where your dignity replaces your drama. The seventh habit that gnaws at mental peace is treating your body as if it were merely transportation for your brain. You negotiate with sleep as if it were optional. You fuel yourself with substances that spike and crash your energy. You sit inside artificial light for 8 hours and then wonder why your mind feels grey. The Stoics trained the body not to worship it, but to make it a reliable ally. A calm mind often requires a tired body, tired from honest effort, not from exhaustion. There are 3 levers here that give you disproportionate return. First, sleep like someone whose decisions matter. Choose a non-negotiable shutdown time for screens, ideally 1 hour before bed. Dim lights, cool the room, repeat a simple routine. Read a few pages, stretch, breathe. This is not about perfection, it's about teaching your nervous system what to expect. Second, move daily. The metric is not a marathon, it is consistency. Sweat a little, breathe a lot. If you can do it outdoors, even better. Your eyes are part of your brain. Let them see distance. Third, eat to honor tomorrow. Notice which foods leave you clear and which fog you. No one needs to legislate your diet if you are paying attention. This is not punishment. This is stewardship. 1 week of disciplined sleep, movement, and nourishment will remind you that peace is physical long before it is philosophical. Your thoughts will not cooperate if your cells are asking for mercy. The 8th habit that cracks mental peace is doom scrolling, consuming a constant stream of outrage, novelty, and curated despair. You call it staying informed, but often it is staying inflamed. The Stoic stance toward information was sober. Consume what you can act upon, ignore what you can't. Not because you don't care, but because you care enough to preserve the energy required to be useful. The algorithm is not a neutral librarian. It is a casino owner. It rewards your attention with more reasons never to leave. The cost isn't just hours, it's the erosion of your baseline mood. Your inner room becomes a newsroom where sirens never stop. Reclaim it with 2 commitments. First, define your information diet, the way you define your food diet. Choose a handful of sources, schedule windows for consumption, and step away. After reading, ask the Stoic filter, what is mine to do? Donate, write, vote, volunteer, learn, teach, or release. If there is no action, refuse the outrage. Second, replace passive feed time with active reading of durable ideas. Take notes. Argue on paper with what you read. Bring what survives into your day. You are not a spectator, you are a citizen. Peace expands when your attention becomes a tool, not a toy. And remember, Silence is not ignorance. It is room for judgment. The ninth habit that dissolves mental peace is sloppy self-talk, the constant muttering of insults you would never say to a stranger. You think self-criticism keeps you sharp. In truth, it dulls you with shame. The Stoics spoke to themselves in a tone we might call stern compassion, exacting about conduct, kind about humanity. They admonished without abusing. If your inner dialogue is a bully, your nervous system is always braced, and braced bodies cannot rest. Reform your language the way a craftsman reforms a workshop. Remove what maims, install what strengthens. Start by noticing the 3 most common attacks you launch on yourself. Perhaps they begin with always or never. I always mess this up. I'll never get it right. Replace the absolutes with specifics. I missed the deadline because I didn't plan small steps. Now you have something you can do next time. Next, create a short phrase that is both true and catalytic. Something you can say in difficult moments. I can do difficult things on purpose. Or steady and clear. Repeat it until it becomes muscle memory. Finally, separate identity from behavior. I am lazy becomes I avoided discomfort today. Here's my plan for tomorrow. You are not your worst hour. You are your next choice. This is not coddling. It is the discipline of accuracy. Peace grows where your words stop lighting fires inside your own chest. The 10th habit that sabotages mental peace is clutter. Physical, digital, emotional. Every open loop demands rent from your attention. The pile in the corner, the inbox with 4,000 unread messages, the promises you made and forgot. Each is a tiny tug on your mind. The Stoics prized simplicity not because they despised beauty, but because they loved freedom. A clear space is not an aesthetic flex, it's cognitive kindness. You cannot think deeply in a room full of unsorted decisions. Create a weekly declutter ritual, small, predictable, almost boring. Set a 30-minute timer. Choose one domain, physical. Clear one surface completely and decide item by item. Keep, discard, donate, relocate. Digital. Archive ruthlessly. Unsubscribe mercilessly. Create 3 folders that catch 90% of your work. Action, waiting, reference, and sweep. Emotional. Write a short list titled Unsaid Things. Pick one, and either say it cleanly or accept that you are not going to and let it go. Remember, clutter is not a moral failing. It's a backlog of choices. You are not going to clear it with a heroic weekend. You will clear it with gentle weekly force. The reward is immediate. When the eye sees order, the mind inhales. The 11th habit, the most insidious, is confusing acceptance with surrender. You hear the Stoic phrase, live in accordance with nature, and interpret it as passive resignation. You let mediocrity sit on your couch and call it fate. But acceptance in the Stoic tradition is not a shrug, it is an audit. It says, I accept the facts as they are and immediately convert them into choices. To accept that a storm is here is not to sit in the rain, it is to close the windows, gather the dry wood, and light a fire. Peace doesn't mean life stops asking hard things of you. It means you stop adding unnecessary struggle to what is already hard. Too many people, under the banner of acceptance, surrender their agency. They call their stuckness destiny. That lie is a thief. Practice true acceptance by pairing every hard fact with a decisive verb. The market changed pairs with learn and adapt. They betrayed me pairs with protect and proceed. I failed pairs with review and recommit. When you live like this, your life becomes less theatrical and more effective. You stop waiting for the weather of your feelings to clear before you sail. You learn to navigate. And as your competence grows, so does your calm. Why? Because the brain trusts you when you act. Peace isn't a mood, it's a reputation you earn with yourself. Now, how do these habits link? Think of them as a chain of custody for your attention. Overthinking snatches it, comparison misdirects it, chaotic mornings scatter it, procrastination stalls it, people-pleasing sells it, resentment shackles it, neglect of the body blurs it, doom-scrolling auctions it, cruel self-talk wounds it, clutter dilutes it, and false acceptance abandons it. Each habit is a leak in the vessel of your mind. You don't repair a ship by arguing with the ocean. You repair it by sealing the leaks one by one, steadily, without drama. This is the Stoic posture, calm hands fixing what's in front of them. And yet you might be thinking, this is a lot. Where do I begin? Begin where the friction is low and the return is high. Choose one habit that resonated, one practice that felt obvious, almost embarrassingly simple. Do it today, not to perform, but to prove to yourself that you keep promises. If mornings are your battlefield, guard the first hour. If comparison is your poison, write your 3 self-defined aims each day. If self-talk is your tyrant, pick your sentence, steady and clear, and repeat it as a lifeline when the sea rises. The Stoics didn't wait to feel like the person they admired. They behaved like them until the feeling caught up. This is not pretending. It is training. There will be days when you forget. Days when the old furniture finds its way back into your inner room. On those days, practice the most underappreciated Stoic skill, beginning again without spectacle. No guilt monologues, no declarations, just the next right action. Reset the boundary, close the app, walk outside, drink water, return to the present task. Peace is a series of small returns. And remember this, because it may be the sentence that changes the way you live. You do not owe the world your agitation. You owe it your clarity. Agitation is easy. Clarity is earned. Agitation conforms to the emotional weather. Clarity builds shelter for others. Some of the most powerful people you will ever meet are not the loudest. They are the ones in whom quiet has weight. Their presence makes other people breathe easier. Not because life is gentle with them, but because they have practiced governing themselves when life is not. Let's walk back one more time into your inner room. See the chair by the window. See the light on the floor. Notice how, with each honest habit you release and each disciplined practice you adopt, the room becomes simpler. You can hear your breath again. You can hear your own thought without 5 echoes of other people's concerns. You realize that mental peace does not mean the world outside has turned tender. It means you are no longer a hostage. If you need a single practice to start this transformation today, choose this. Every night, quietly evaluate the day with 3 questions. What did I do that aligned with my character? Where did I lose my footing? What, specifically, will I do tomorrow to step 1 inch closer to the person I respect? Write the answers. Close the notebook. Sleep. Wake. In the morning, touch your breath before you touch your phone. Speak your sentence, steady and clear. Then go make your day small and honorable. Seek 1 difficult truth and tell it kindly. Move your body. Complete 1 ugly inch of meaningful work. Refuse one request that doesn't fit your values. Clear one surface. Forgive one memory by turning it into one boundary. Learn one thing you can teach. Return to the chair if you forget. Begin again. You do not need to earn permission to live like this. You need only to stop surrendering your minutes to what does not serve you. Imagine, 3 months from now, walking into the same room in your mind and recognizing it again. Simple. Bright. Yours. That recognition will not feel dramatic. It will feel like relief. And when someone asks you what changed, you won't point to a miracle. You'll point to a handful of habits you refuse to carry any longer, and to the quiet power of standards kept in private. Peace is not a trophy, it's a practice. Start now. There's a moment I want you to remember from the last message. The moment you stood in the doorway of your inner room and noticed, maybe for the first time in a long while, that peace is something you practice, not something you're handed. You cleared space. You placed a simple chair by the window. You felt the quiet take shape. That wasn't a metaphor. That was a promise. Because once you taste quiet, you realize what you've been trading away for noise. And now that you've reclaimed that room, we need to furnish it with something equally powerful. The kind of language that honors your discipline, protects your boundaries, and signals to the world that your peace has a guardian. Words are not decoration. In the Stoic tradition, they are tools of governance. They're how you set law inside yourself, and how others learn your city has walls. You've felt, I'm sure, how certain sentences can shrink you in your own story, the half-truth you say to avoid discomfort, the rehearsed apology that's really a request to be liked, the flood of explanations when a simple no would have done. Speech leaves a residue in the mind. When it's out of alignment, your body knows. Stomach tight, throat dry, sleep uneasy. But when you speak in a way that matches your standards, something shifts in the air. People soften. They listen. They lean forward, not because you're loud, but because your words are clean. Respect isn't magic. It's a signal. And the clearest signal is self-mastery made audible. Think of what follows as 8 lanterns you can hang in that inner room. Each one is a sentence. More than a sentence, it's a stance. None of them are tricks. They won't manipulate anyone into admiration. What they will do is declare with calm authority that you can be trusted, because you trust yourself. Say them sincerely, live them consistently, and you will feel the temperature of your conversations change. People will stop testing your edges and start bringing you useful truth, not because you demanded respect, but because you embodied it. The first thing to say, the one that feels like stepping into cold water and then realizing it's exactly what you needed, is simple. I don't know. If your ego flinches, good. That flinch is how you know you're close to freedom. We grow up believing that respect is earned by appearing to have answers on demand. But the Stoics measured respect differently, not by omniscience, but by accuracy. You are not a search engine, you are a person. When you claim knowledge you don't have, you may win a moment and lose a reputation. People sense when you're guessing in costume. Worse, your mind learns a habit, prioritizing image over truth, and that habit poisons judgment. Saying I don't know is not an admission of incompetence. It's the first note in the music of credibility, provided you add the crucial second phrase. And here's how I'll find out. That turns humility into momentum. In practice, it sounds like this. I don't know the full picture yet. I'll check A, ask B, and get you a clear answer by 4 p.m. Notice what happens inside you when you speak that way. The anxiety turns into a plan. Notice what happens in others. They relax. They're no longer bracing for spin. They hear a grown-up in the room. If you want this sentence to earn respect instantly, anchor it in a system. Keep a small capture list. Paper, not just apps. When you say, "I'll find out," you write the promise where your eyes will trip over it. Then you deliver. Every time you keep that micro-promise, your words gain weight. People start trusting your future tense. And here's a quiet benefit. By refusing to fake knowledge, you create a culture around you where truth is safe to say. Others will bring you their "I don't know" early, before small gaps become expensive holes. That's leadership by example. Stoic style. Reality first, ego second. You don't know yet, and you're strong enough to say it. That yet is your respect. The second thing that raises the floor of a room is even harder on the ego and even more magnetic to respect. I was wrong. Here's how I'm correcting it. Most people will confess error only after they've been cornered, and even then they leak excuses. They outsource cause to circumstances or hide behind group decisions. You can feel the hedging, the ifs, the buts, the soft passive voice where no one is the subject. It doesn't restore trust, it drains it. The Stoic alternative is swift, specific ownership paired with a concrete remedy. It sounds like this. I misread the timeline and created pressure on the team. I'm updating the plan, taking the late nights myself this week, and I've scheduled a review to prevent a repeat. There's no self-flagellation there, no melodrama, just responsibility with a backbone. Why does this sentence command respect? Because it collapses the distance between values and behavior. Anyone can praise accountability. Few can demonstrate it when it costs them. When you name your mistake plainly and pair it with a repair, you make it safe for other people to be honest too. You trade the brittle performance of perfection for the sturdy culture of improvement. This is crucial. Saying "I was wrong" does not shrink you. It enlarges the container that can hold you. People stop tiptoeing. Your collaborators take bigger swings because they know the ground is firm if they land imperfectly. On a personal level, your nervous system quiets. Secrets are loud. When you don't have to hide from the truth, you sleep better. Respect begins in your own chest. There is a technique to get good at this. When something goes sideways, run the simple autopsy before you speak. Fact, root, fix, teach. Fact. What specifically happened minus theater. Root. What decision of mine made it more likely? Fix. What am I doing now? Teach. What will I install so the system gets smarter? Then say it out loud without embellishment. The faster you close the loop, the less scar tissue forms in the relationship. People begin to predict your response to setbacks, clarity, composure, repair. That predictability is respect's favorite food. The third thing is a single syllable that terrifies people who mistake likability for value. No. It is short, clean, and, in a noisy world, it cuts. Many imagine that saying no drains respect because it risks disappointing others. The reality is the opposite. Chronic yes erodes trust. When your mouth outruns your capacity, your promises become confetti. People learn to discount your agreements because they're buying options, not guarantees. A principled no preserves the integrity of your yes and sharpens your presence. The Stoics were not people-pleasers, they were people-servers. That distinction matters. Serving sometimes means declining, because a diluted you doesn't help anyone. How do you say no in a way that builds respect instead of resentment? You remove the jitter. No apologies for existing. No novel-length explanations that invite debate. Try this pattern. I appreciate you asking. I'm not able to take that on and keep my other commitments. That's it. If appropriate, you can add, here's one way forward without me, and offer a pointer. You're not abandoning, you're being precise. Notice the posture of this sentence. It's not hostile, it's not hedging, it's clean. Some will push. Expect it. Pressure tests are a fact of human social life. Your job is to let their urgency meet your boundary and watch it stop there. The first time you do this, your stomach will audition for a gymnast. Good. Nerves are not a veto. They're a signal you're renegotiating your identity. Practice helps. Pre-commit your time to the essentials and put it somewhere visible. When requests arrive, you aren't deciding in a vacuum, you're consulting your values in calendar form. You can even say so. I've already committed that time to X. This is not excuse-making, it's honesty about finite resources. With repetition, people learn something invaluable about you. Your word is not easy to get, but when they have it, it's solid. That is the root of respect. Not availability, reliability. The fourth thing to say, especially after you've drawn a boundary, is the sentence that turns a blocked path into a bridge. Here's what I can do. If no is the guard, this is the diplomat. Respect rises when you show that your limits have intelligence, not hostility. Suppose a colleague asks for an urgent overhaul by tomorrow. Your answer could be no. Full stop. But watch the difference when you add specificity and agency. I can't deliver a full overhaul by tomorrow without harming quality. I can, however, fix the top 3 issues that move the needle most and have those to you by noon. If that helps, I'm in. You offer a real alternative that protects standards and projects calm. People don't feel stonewalled, they feel led. This pattern is essential in partnerships, in leadership, and in your own self-talk. Inside your mind, the unreasonable voice will often demand impossible piles of work by impossible times. If you only ever answer with no, you can end up in a private power struggle. Replace it with this sentence, what can I do today that meaningfully advances the goal? And you'll notice your motivation thaw. On the outside, others experience you as someone who doesn't collapse into overwhelm or fight reality. You negotiate reality toward progress. That's compelling. It signals executive function, the rare skill of converting constraints into motion. To use this well, get good at ranking. Not everything is equally valuable. Keep a living sense of the 20% of actions that produce 80% of outcomes. Then, when you say, here's what I can do, you're not offering scraps, you're offering leverage. Deliver those small wins consistently, and people start coming to you not just for labor, but for judgment. Respect is not simply about effort, it's about the wisdom of where you aim that effort. This sentence proves you can aim. The fifth thing that earns respect in seconds is a doorway, not a verdict. Help me understand. There are 2 ways to be in a hard conversation. One is to arm your position, fortify your certainty, and wait for your turn to shoot. The other is to lower your weapon first and seek the terrain you haven't seen yet. That second way is rarer and far more powerful. Help me understand sounds soft to the untrained ear. In reality, it's an assertion of leadership. You are directing the conversation toward facts, toward frames, toward fidelity to reality. You are saying, I value truth more than my status in this moment. Use it with precision. Help me understand what success looks like to you in this project. Help me understand where you think the plan fails under pressure. Help me understand the constraint I'm not seeing. Then stop talking. Ask one, maybe two follow-ups. Reflect back what you heard. So you're saying X matters more than Y because of Z. Did I get that right? This isn't therapy speak for its own sake. It's a rigor tool. When people feel accurately heard, their nervous systems step down and the real conversation begins. You move from postures to problems. Even if you ultimately disagree, the ground is now steady enough to stand on. There's a hidden benefit. Help me understand changes you. It trains your mind to look for models, not monsters. Instead of casting the other as an adversary, you treat them as a source of data. It doesn't mean you adopt their view. It means you collect inputs before you decide. The Stoics prize this. Examine your impressions before you assent. In the modern world, one of the most respected traits is calm curiosity. It says, I am not threatened by information. People want to work with that. They want to be led by that. They want to be loved by that. Because calm curiosity makes rooms safer and outcomes better. The sixth thing that expands your presence immediately is too often reduced to pleasantry, when in fact it is strategic and sacred. Thank you for something real. Specific gratitude is high-resolution respect. It tells the other person, I see the effort, not just the outcome. It calibrates the relationship around contribution, not performance. Thank you becomes powerful when you attach it to the precise behavior and the real effect. Thank you for catching that error before it left the building. Your vigilance saved us hours. Thank you for asking the hard question in the meeting. Your courage made the plan sturdier. Thank you for staying patient while I recalibrated. Your steadiness helped me think. Why does this sentence create respect rather than dilute it? Because it shows you are not a black hole for value. Leaders who never say thank you train people to work defensively. Partners who never say thank you teach love to feel unseen. Colleagues who never say thank you become surrounded by resentment dressed as compliance. When you practice specific gratitude, two things happen. First, people repeat the behavior you highlight. You're not just rewarding, you're steering. Second, you model a stance. I am not diminished by acknowledging others. I am strengthened. Insecure egos hoard credit. Secure souls distribute it and become central by choice, not by force. To make this a habit, keep a running log of contributions you notice. Once a day, choose one to name aloud or write. It takes 90 seconds and alters the fabric of the day. Do not confuse this with flattery. Flattery inflates. Gratitude clarifies. One manipulates, the other honors. The Stoics would insist on this distinction. Gratitude is justice, the giving of what is due. When you practice it, your words become a ledger others trust. The seventh thing to say is not elaborate. It's a request for a pause. Give me a moment to think. Our culture mistakes speed for strength. Rooms reward the fastest voice, the hottest take, the quickest reply. But respect often follows the person who can tolerate silence and refuses to trade accuracy for immediacy. By asking for a moment, you announce that your answers have quality standards. You signal that your mind is not a hallway with doors swinging open at random. It's a workshop with gates that open when the work is ready. Here's how to use it without feeling like you've lost the room. Keep your face open and your tone even. That's a big decision. Give me a minute to think so I can answer you well. Then do what you said. Breathe. Look down if you need to disconnect from eyes. Run a quick internal checklist. What are the facts? What's in my control? What matters most over the long term? What are the second-order effects? Then deliver a measured response, or, if it truly requires more time, schedule it. I'll send a clear decision by tomorrow noon. Every time you do this, you're teaching people how to time their expectations around you. They learn you're not slow, you're sober. Your words are not tossed into the air, they're placed. Learn to love the sound of your own silence. Buy yourself 30 seconds often, and you'll buy yourself years of respect. This is especially crucial when you're triggered. In agitation, your mouth will volunteer you for futures you do not want. Give me a moment to think is a guardrail. It keeps the car on the road while the weather passes. The Stoics trained for this, not to be unfeeling, but to be unmoved by urgency when urgency is theatre. When you conserve your decisions for when your mind is clear, you earn a reputation that compounds. People come to you for signal, not noise. The eighth thing, the capstone sentence that makes the others cohere, is a declaration that sets the coordinates of your life so others can navigate you without colliding. This is my standard. You don't have to announce it like a manifesto. It can be woven into conversation with calm weight. This is my standard. I don't promise what I can't do. This is my standard. I fix my mistakes faster than I defend them. This is my standard. I protect my mornings for deep work. This is my standard. I don't speak about people who aren't in the room. When you state your standard, two things happen. First, you bind yourself in public, which strengthens your discipline. Second, you relieve others of guessing. Guessing creates friction. Clarity creates trust. Standards are not opinions, they are practices you're willing to be inconvenienced for. If you aren't willing to absorb cost, you don't have a standard, you have a preference. People can tell. They test. Life tests too. When your stated standard meets a hard day and survives, respect lands like a bird, finding its branch. The Stoics lived by rule, not because they loved rigidity, but because they loved freedom. Rules you choose rescue you from moods you didn't. State them gently. Uphold them quietly. Adjust them rarely and only upward after reflection. To make this sentence stick, pair it with environment. If your standard is focus, build a morning that makes it likely. If your standard is honesty, surround yourself with people who tell you the thing you don't want to hear. If your standard is health, set your kitchen and your calendar to agree. Then, when you say, "This is my standard," your life nods in agreement. There is nothing more persuasive than congruence. It is harder than rhetoric and more beautiful. People feel it. They begin to align around it, not because you force them to, but because human beings crave reliable structure. You become, quietly, the person in the room who sets the weather. Notice how these 8 sentences braid together. I don't know yet cleanses pride and plants a flag for truth. I was wrong, here's how I'm correcting it, repairs trust and accelerates learning. No protects your finite life from counterfeit urgencies. Here's what I can do, converts limits into progress. Help me understand turns conflict into data and enemies into sources. Thank you for something real, keeps the ground fertile where you stand. Give me a moment to think, upgrades the quality of your decisions. This is my standard, draws the blueprint that all the other sentences build upon. Together, they transform your voice from a plea into a presence. There's an objection that whispers at this point. What if I say these things and people still don't respect me? Two answers. First, these sentences are not charms to cast on others. They are commitments to yourself. Their first audience is the person who has to live with you tonight, you. If you respect your own speech, you walk lighter even when applause is delayed. Second, these sentences change rooms over time. The first time you say no, the room is surprised. The second time, the room recalibrates. The third time, it plans better. The first time you say, "I was wrong," people are skeptical. The second time, they expect repair. The third time, they bring you bad news early. Respect compounds slowly and then suddenly. You may not notice the shift until one day you give your opinion and the room goes quiet, the way a lake goes still before reflecting a star. That silence is your dividend. Let's turn this into muscle. For the next 8 days, pick one sentence per day. Don't announce it. Just carry it with you like a coin in your pocket and spend it when the moment asks. Day 1. I don't know yet. Watch how your anxiety morphs into action when you pair ignorance with an immediate plan. Day 2. I was wrong. Here's how I'm fixing it now. Watch how fast a problem loses its teeth when you bite first. Day 3. No. Watch your calendar begin to resemble a life. Day 4. Here's what I can do. Watch obstacles rearrange into steps. Day 5. Help me understand. Watch tension drain from faces. Day 6. Thank you for X. Watch spines lengthen. Day 7. Give me a moment to think. Watch your voice slow and deepen. Day 8. This is my standard. Watch yourself believe you. Then loop the 8 again. Every loop sands the rough edges of your old reflexes and polishes the new ones until they shine without effort. And because we're practicing Stoic wisdom, remember to pair words with deeds. The sentences only carry power when your behavior agrees. If you say, "I don't know yet," and then never follow up, you've taught people that humility is just a costume you wear to buy time. If you say, "I was wrong," but railroad people anyway, you've turned apology into strategy. If you say, "Thank you," but keep the rewards for yourself, your words become sugar over rot. It's not about moralizing, it's about effectiveness. Reality is the final judge. The Stoics weren't asking us to be pious, they were asking us to be precise. Say the thing that is true. Do the thing you said. Repeat. That's where respect grows, first in your eyes when you meet yourself in the mirror, and then in the eyes of those who share your days. Before we close, sit again in that inner room. The chair, the window, the light moving across the floor. Bring one conversation to mind, one you've been dreading, one you've been rehearsing at 2 a.m. Lay these sentences on the table like instruments. Which one belongs there? Maybe it's "help me understand" before you decide. Maybe it's "no" to the request that has been hollowing you out. Maybe it's "I was wrong" to a person you love. Not because you want to end the argument, but because you want to start the healing. Maybe it's "this is my standard" to yourself, because the only person who has to respect your life is its owner. Choose one. Write it once. Speak it once. Then let the room be quiet long enough for your words to do their work. You will know it's working when your speech starts making your life easier. Not easier like fewer challenges, but easier like less friction, fewer knots, clearer paths. People will approach you differently. They will give you cleaner information. They will test you less and trust you more. And most importantly, you will carry yourself like the person you are training to be. steady, clear, unhurried, kind. Respect doesn't require drama. It requires standards you keep in public, patience you exercise in private, and words that match both. If you remember nothing else, remember this. Your language is your leadership made audible. You do not need to shout. You do not need to decorate. You need to say the few right things and live them. That is how mountains talk. That is how rivers carve through rock. That is how, one sentence at a time, you turn a noisy life into a life that deserves its quiet. So take a breath. Choose your sentence for today. Say it well. Then, most important, honor it with action. The world will feel the difference immediately, and so will you. You remember the inner room we built together? 4 walls of quiet, a chair by the window, light sliding across the floor as if time itself had learned to move gently. In that room, we learned to speak with weight, to say the few right words that reorder a day. We practiced phrases that earned respect without noise. But there's something you might have noticed as you started living that way. The moment you steady your own mind, the world around you becomes clearer, including the people inside it. Some lean closer, some pull away, some begin a subtle dance that your spirit can feel before your eyes can prove. And here's the uncomfortable truth the Stoics never ran from. Clarity doesn't just show you who to trust, it shows you who doesn't wish you well. This isn't about paranoia. It's about perception without panic. A Stoic doesn't stare through keyholes for enemies. A Stoic simply keeps their eyes open and their heart guarded by wisdom. Dislike doesn't always arrive as open conflict. Often it hides behind pleasantries, nods at the right time, and compliments that leave a strange aftertaste. Dislike can be quiet, a consistent subtraction of warmth, a refusal to see you accurately, microscopic acts that leave you doubting your own instruments. What we'll do now is simple and strong. We will name what is happening without malice. We will choose what is in our power without theatrics. And we will proceed with the calm of someone who does not outsource their peace. If you listen closely, you won't just detect who secretly dislikes you. You'll learn to respond in a way that preserves your dignity and keeps your inner room intact. The first hidden sign appears in the smallest exchanges, and if you miss it, the rest becomes harder to see. They consistently misrepresent who you are when you're not in the room, and when it reaches your ears, it's never a faithful echo. It's a warped reflection. You notice it in the way stories travel. You say, "I needed 2 days to double-check the numbers," and somewhere it becomes, "They drag their feet, they're always behind." You offer a suggestion and somehow it's retold as a complaint. This kind of subtle revision isn't innocent. It's an attempt to erode your contour. The Stoic test is simple. Does the version of you that person carries get more accurate with time or more distorted? When someone likes you, they update in your favor as they learn more. When someone quietly dislikes you, their picture of you calcifies around your least flattering moment. The danger here is internal. You'll be tempted to chase down every misquote, to litigate every distortion. Don't. That's a kind of slavery. Instead, respond with the steadiness of one who respects their own witness. When the rumor arrives, correct it once, cleanly, in public if appropriate. That isn't accurate. Here's what I said, and why. Then return to work that leaves a trail of truth. Your consistency is your affidavit. People are not blind, they are busy. If your reality keeps outpacing the distorted version, most will adjust to the signal. And if a few insist on holding the old caricature, that tells you something important about where not to invest intimacy. The Stoics teach us to separate noise from information. A misrepresentation corrected once is noise. A misrepresentation repeated after correction is information. Use it. From crooked echoes we step into a second sign, a softer pressure that looks like inclusion but feels like air being removed from a room. You are invited after decisions are made, and your presence is treated as a stamp, not a voice. On paper, you're in the loop. In reality, you're positioned as someone to be informed, not consulted. Notice the pattern, not the single meeting. Do they bring you in only when the risk is already baked in, when there's nothing meaningful left to shape? Do they compliment you for signing off quickly, as if speed were your only value? Hidden dislike often arrives disguised as efficiency. It keeps you close enough to share credit and far enough to never share power. The Stoic response isn't rage, it's recentering your locus of control. You say without bitterness, "If I'm accountable for the outcome, I need to be present in the design." And you say it early. If exclusion persists, you adjust your commitments to match your influence. You do not accept responsibility where you are denied agency. That adjustment, calmly articulated, flushes out intent. Those who respect you will align process with accountability. Those who secretly dislike you will prefer your silence and your signature. Believe them. Then rearrange your distance accordingly. Influence is not begged for, it is built by refusing to play parts that betray your standards. The third sign slips through tone more than content, compliments that carry small hooks. "You're so good when you actually focus," said with a smile. "You did surprisingly well on that presentation," eyebrows raised. "This is your best work yet, delivered only after weeks of minimizing everything you contributed." At first you tell yourself you're being sensitive, but your nervous system knows arithmetic better than your mind admits. Respect adds, contempt subtracts. People who like you add energy after you leave. People who dislike you extract it in installments. The Stoic move is not to debate the sentence, it's to attend to the body. How do you consistently feel after exchanges with this person? Lighter with direction or heavier with confusion? Marcus Aurelius warned against being dipped by others' moods. The invisible dip is the tell here. When backhanded praise appears, meet it with steady specificity. "Thanks. Which part worked well for you?" Vague flattery wilts under precision. If a barb is hidden, the request for clarity forces it to be named or abandoned. Over time, the barbs either stop or become obvious enough to ignore cleanly. The deeper practice is to keep your self-estimation rooted in your standards, not in improvisations of other people's egos. When your worth lives in your work and your work lives in your values, praise loses the power to intoxicate and criticism loses the power to poison. You hear both, you are owned by neither. The fourth sign is logistical but profound. They don't protect your time. Hidden dislike reveals itself as chronic scheduling accidents, last-minute cancellations that cost you the very hours you defended for meaningful work, or urgent requests consistently sent just after you sign off, engineered to keep you off balance. A one-off crisis is life. A pattern is a posture. People show you how they value you by how they treat your time. If they respect you, they plan to spare you rework. If they don't, they'll treat your calendar like a sponge for their spillages. The Stoic stance is not martyrdom, it is boundaries with teeth and grace. You can respond with equanimity and firmness. "I can't shift tonight. I can offer you a draft by 10 a.m. or a full version by Thursday." Which serves you better? You're not punishing. You're training reality to meet your standard. Keep a visible ledger of your commitments so that when a now lands on your desk, you can point to the architecture of your day. And when you must flex, as you sometimes will, note it, name it, and make sure flexing remains the exception, not the policy. You're not just protecting your hours, you're protecting your presence, the very thing that makes your work worth doing. Now watch how words turn into weather. The fifth sign is subtle social engineering, triangulation. They talk to others about their concerns with you rather than talking to you. You begin to feel a draft in rooms you used to find warm. People are checking in with a worried tone about things you never said. This isn't care, it's choreography. Hidden dislike doesn't want resolution. It wants leverage. It wants allies built on smoke. The Stoic solution is anti-triangulation. You invite sunlight without drama. I'm hearing different versions of the same concern. Let's get everyone who cares in one room and give it an hour. In that meeting, you model the thing people long for but rarely see: clarity without cruelty. Here's what I actually said. Here's what I meant. Here's what I'll do. What am I missing? If some refuse the room and prefer the hallways, you've learned enough. You reduce exposure, not in anger, but in hygiene. Your peace is a house. You don't leave the windows open on a windy night. The sixth sign looks like generosity, but its shape is wrong when you hold it up to the light. They offer help that subtly puts you in their debt, then cash it in at the precise moment that compromises your standards. A favor attaches a string to your throat. At first you feel grateful. Later you realize you'd signed a contract you didn't read. The Stoic remedy is to be precise about reciprocity. Accept help with thanks and with the clear boundary that your principles are not for sale. Say it out loud. I appreciate the assist. Just to be clear, my decisions remain tied to the work, not to favors. People who like you will be relieved. People who dislike you will be offended that the hook didn't set. Your task isn't to repair their disappointment. Your task is to keep your compass unbent. If you do owe someone, repay quickly and cleanly. Leave as little invisible currency in circulation as possible. Owing small debts breeds large manipulations. You want your ledger clear so your judgments stay free. The seventh sign wears the mask of humor, jokes that lower your ceiling. In groups, they consistently aim the laugh at your expense, especially when you've just shared an idea. They call it just teasing, but the punchline keeps training the room where to place you. Laughter is a social contract. It decides who stands where. The Stoic response is not to become humorless. Joy is a virtue, but to reclaim the frame. If the joke distorts your competence, you straighten it with one clean line. I'm all for jokes. Let's keep them true. Then continue with your point as if the road were always yours. If the pattern continues, take it private. I know you're playing, but the recurring theme of your jokes dulls the room's attention when I speak. Let's make sure humor doesn't tax the work. It's not a scolding, it's maintenance. You're reminding the other person that your name is not a toy. If they care about you, they'll recalibrate. If they don't, you now know the cost of their laughter and can spend your presence elsewhere. The eighth sign is an absence where you expected a hand. They are allergic to your wins. They don't show up to celebrate. They delay congratulations until it's socially mandatory, or they reframe your achievement as luck, timing, or someone else's influence. This is the quietest cruelty, and it will tempt you to self-minimize so you don't trigger their discomfort. Don't. The Stoics warned against letting others' vices make you forget your virtues. When someone you thought close cannot metabolize your growth, see it as a mirror. Their diet is envy, and your job is not to feed it or starve yourself. Instead, hold your success with humility and firmness. Share credit where it's due. Name your effort without apology. Keep moving. If they're willing, invite them to grow alongside you. If they prefer the old horizon, love them at a distance where your wings aren't clipped. You cannot dim your light to keep someone else from noticing it's dark where they choose to stand. The 9th sign is transactional warmth. They are attentive when they need your access or your skill, and distant when you need theirs. The rhythm maps perfectly to their calendar of advantage. Stoic philosophy calls this out by asking the simplest question: what friendship is this? Real friendship is mutual cultivation. It deepens in difficulty. Transactional ties evaporate at the first sign of cost. You don't need to sermonize, you need to track. When support is one way long enough, convert the relationship from personal to professional, from open-ended to scoped. I'm glad to help within these bounds. It's not punitive, it's proportionate. Your soul is not a public utility. Reciprocity is not bargaining. It's the glue that keeps two humans from using each other's lives as consumables. Where mutuality grows, invest. Where it shrinks, stop pretending it's something it's not. Clarity is a kindness to both of you. The 10th sign is famine by delay. They respond slowly to matters that matter to you while replying instantly to things that serve them. They forget action items that would advance your goals, yet move mountains when the path runs through their yard. The pattern is attention as currency, and you are perpetually underfunded. The Stoic answer is to remove wishful thinking from logistics. Don't ask vague favors. Don't rely on soft commitments. Translate what you need into dates, deliverables, and owners, then write it down where it can be seen. Can you confirm by Friday at noon? If yeses keep evaporating on contact with time, you downgrade your expectations and reroute your plan. Not with spite, with sovereignty. You stop placing heavy cargo on a bridge that has cracked too many times. As your plans become independent of unreliable timelines, your stress drops. And as your stress drops, your vision clears. This was never personal, even if the effect felt personal. Some people cannot carry what you thought they could. That doesn't make them villains. It makes them poor infrastructure. Don't build your house on it. The 11th sign is an invisible ceiling on vulnerability. They will eagerly receive your confession when it shrinks you and quietly ignore it when it strengthens you. Share a fear and they nod with superiority. Share a boundary and they go quiet or change subject. Hidden dislike doesn't want your wholeness. It wants your dependence. The Stoic practice here is to treat vulnerability as a precision instrument, not a flood. You share to build, not to bleed. Watch where your honesty is held with respect and where it is filed away as ammunition. Then calibrate. You don't have to armor up with everyone, but you do have to stop handing knives to those who can't resist collecting them. Remember, your inner room is not a museum. It's a sanctuary. Only certain people should have keys. The 12th sign, the one that reveals the others, appears when you begin to thrive. Your peace stabilizes, your work deepens, your boundaries hold, your voice steadies. People who love you expand with you. People who secretly dislike you become clumsy saboteurs, usually under the banner of concern. They ask questions that cast doubt on your direction precisely when you need stamina. Are you sure you can handle that? Isn't this a bit much? Don't forget where you came from, delivered with a nostalgic smile that feels like handcuffs. The Stoic answer is gracious clarity. You don't attack their worry. You refuse to install it in your mind. I hear your concern. I've counted the cost. I'm choosing this path. Then you demonstrate your readiness by living your preparation. If they are capable of joy, they will meet you on the new ground in time. If they cannot, your path will diverge without theatrics. Not because you are better, but because you are moving and they are not. Respect their pace without adopting it. Now, how do you live with these signs without turning brittle? Start with the commitment to see plainly. Stoicism is not an invitation to become suspicious. It's a discipline of honest seeing followed by proportionate action. Honest seeing says, here is behavior, here is the pattern. Proportionate action says, here is my boundary, here is my distance, here is my continued dignity. When you stop arguing with what people reveal and respond instead to what they consistently do, your life simplifies. You stop auditioning for rooms that don't want you. You stop throwing explanations at walls that have decided to be walls. You conserve your energy for crafting a life with those who can hold it. Let's make this operational, because philosophy is only useful at the speed of practice. When a misrepresentation reaches you, correct once and document. When you're invited after decisions, escalate your involvement or lower your responsibility. When backhanded compliments arrive, request specifics and keep your standards as your north. When your time is treated like elastic, answer with structured alternatives and visible commitments. When triangulation happens, pull shadows into a single light. When favors come with strings, thank and clarify your autonomy. When jokes slice downward, straighten the frame publicly and reset privately. When your wins are downgraded, refuse self-minimization. Hold your success with clean gratitude and move. When warmth is transactional, change the contract. When reliability is performative, root around it. When vulnerability is treated as currency, discharge less of it. When concern disguises sabotage, restate your path and keep walking. Notice the common thread. None of this requires anger to work. You can be firm without heat, truthful without venom, distant without bitterness. The Stoics were not statues. They were students of proportion. They felt fully and chose wisely. You can too. Your goal is not to expose those who dislike you. Your goal is to keep your soul and your mission unpolluted. Some people will come around when they realize their tactics don't move you. Some will drift away when your boundaries deny them the old comforts. Both outcomes are merciful, because what remains are those who can grow with you, who tell the truth when it's hard, who guard your absence like they guard your presence, who laugh to lift, not to lower, who show up when there is nothing to gain, who handle your time with reverence, who can celebrate your rise without feeling like they're falling. Before we close, return with me to the inner room. Sit in your chair. Watch the light. Think of one relationship that felt heavy as you listened. Not a villain, just heavy. Identify which sign is most true there. Don't write a speech. Write a sentence. I will correct once and move on. I will tie accountability to involvement. I will say, let's get everyone in the same room. I will stop sharing this part of me with this person. Then plan the smallest action that honors that sentence in the next 7 days. You don't need to announce it to the world. You need to keep it the way a craftsman keeps a promise to their workbench. When you do, something wonderful happens. Your mind stops haunting a gallery of imagined conversations. Your days stop leaking through unguarded doors. Your life starts feeling like it's yours again. This is the heart of Stoic philosophy, lived quietly in the modern world. To see what is, to choose what you can, to let go of what you can't, and to proceed with a serenity that doesn't ask permission. The more you practice this, the less you will obsess over who secretly dislikes you, and the more you will naturally move toward those who are capable of honest goodwill. Your standards will do the sorting. You won't have to. And if you ever forget, if you find yourself tempted to run post-mortems on every glance and sentence, come back to the room. Sit. Breathe. Ask the only question that always returns peace. What is within my control right now? Often the answer will be simple. Speak clearly once, decide cleanly next, and then place your attention where it bears fruit. People will show you their hands in time. Your task is not to stare at their fingers, it's to keep your own hands steady on the wheel of your life. Walk out of this room today a little lighter, not because the world has changed, but because you have decided to meet it with fewer illusions. You will see more. You will react less. You will conserve your strength for the work and the love that deserve it. And that, quietly, is how respect grows around you like a climate. Not demanded, not dramatized, simply earned by the way you carry yourself, and protected by the way you respond when the signs appear. You and I have been building something together, brick by early brick. We started by learning to speak with weight, to say the few words that made rooms quieter and people listen. Then we learned to see, to notice the tiny fractures in relationships, to respond with boundaries instead of bitterness. If you felt a shift after those 2 steps, calmer breath, cleaner posture, fewer knots in your shoulders, what you're noticing is the first taste of a deeper order. And order, sustained over time, is not an accident. It is a morning decision, repeated until your life begins to trust you. This is where we go next. Because now that your perception is sharper and your language has muscle, the question becomes, how do you start each day so that your standards don't dissolve under the first hot wind of urgency? The answer, as the old Stoics would tell you without ornament, is to govern the first hour, not worship it, govern it. If you take the handle of your morning, the rest of the day becomes a door that opens instead of a wall that resists. If you surrender your morning, the day becomes a negotiation you slowly lose. I want to hand you 5 morning secrets that tilt the odds, quietly, decisively, in your favor. They are not hacks, they are not glitter, they are practices of sovereignty. When you live them sincerely, they give you what looks from the outside like an unfair advantage. It's not unfair, it's uncommon. Most people wake up and lease their attention to strangers. You will wake up and take back the deed. Begin with what sounds like nothing and is actually everything. Start your day with silence, not an empty room you scroll through, but a deliberate emptiness you listen into. When you first wake, your mind is soft clay. If you press a headline into it, you will wear that imprint all day. If you press quiet into it, you give yourself the raw material for judgment. The Stoics wrote at dawn, not to be romantic, but to calibrate. Marcus Aurelius would sit with his tablet and talk himself into clarity. People will be opinionated, selfish, meddlesome. You will remain steady. Notice the honesty there. He didn't pray for an easy morning. He prepared for a human one. Your version can be even simpler. Sit on the edge of the bed, feet on the floor. 3 long breaths all the way into your ribs. No phone, no soundtrack. Feel your heart finding a pace that belongs to you. Then ask a single question, quietly. What is within my power this morning? Write the answer down with a cheap pen, because cheap pens do not ask you to perform. The silence is not a void, it's a frame. It tells your nervous system, our inputs are chosen, not hurled at us. In 10 minutes of quiet, you gain what people spend hours chasing, the right to decide what matters next. From silence, the body asks to be included. And the second secret is the clean discipline of movement. Not to decorate yourself, not to keep score with a wearable, but to remind your animal you are its shepherd. Epictetus warned that philosophy is useless if the body is allowed to rule unchecked. When you move first thing, you reverse that rule. You are using motion as a line of code that tells your day, I do difficult things on purpose. Do not complicate this. Complexity is how avoidance wears a lab coat. 10 minutes of deliberate effort, push-ups, a brisk walk under a grey sky, a jump rope until your chest widens, teaches more philosophy than a shelf of quotes. The point is not to punish yourself, it is to practice command. When you teach your muscles to listen to your will before breakfast, your attention is more likely to listen to you at noon when a screen is begging. People ask, what's the best workout? The best one is the one you'll do without bargaining. Choose a minimum that is embarrassingly small when you're brave and entirely possible when you're tired. Then keep it. You are not building a beach body, you are building a trustworthy self. You'll notice a second-order gain the Stoics would appreciate. The body's movement rinses the mind. Stuck thoughts dislodge when the lungs work. Problems sort themselves into solvable and not solvable when your feet meet the pavement. You return to your desk not as a brain on a stick, but as an organism in alignment. Now that your breath is honest and your blood is awake, the third secret gives your day a spine. Reflection that becomes instruction. Most people journal like they are writing postcards to a future self who never reads them. Stoic journaling is different. It is an audit, a courtroom, a workshop. You are both witness and judge. Keep 3 short prompts. First, what did I do yesterday that honored my standards? This is not self-congratulation, it is data collection. If you can't name what you did well, you will repeat it by accident at best. Second, where did I fall below my standard? Write the fact without flinching or shaming. Shame is theatre. Facts are hooks you can pull on. Third, what exactly will I do today to improve the shape by 1 degree? Not 12. 1. I will start the proposal by writing the problem statement before checking email. I will call the difficult client at 9:30 when my voice is calm. I will say no to one request that belongs to someone else's calendar. This is how you transform journaling from an aesthetic to a lever. Reflection without instruction is nostalgia. Instruction without reflection is arrogance. Combined, they become a motor, and because you wrote it with your hand, your brain flags it as a promise. Your day will present chances to keep or break it. Each time you keep it, you reinforce a phrase that changes lives. I am someone who does what they say. With the spine in place, most mornings still collapse under the first unpredictable blow unless you practice the fourth secret. Premeditatio malorum, premeditation of misfortune. The world advertises manifesting yachts in your driveway. The Stoics practiced rehearsing interruptions, not because they were pessimists, but because they refused to be surprised by human weather. Sit for 90 seconds and list what could reasonably go wrong today. The train is late. A colleague sends a critical email with 6 people copied. Your child wakes with a fever. Your presentation glitches. A client ghosts. Now, rather than doom scroll your imagination, pair each with a default response that protects your composure. Late train. I'll walk 2 stops and use the time to memorize my opening. Critical email. I won't reply for 10 minutes. I'll restate the facts once, ask one clarifying question, and propose the next step. Fever. I'll cancel 2 meetings, notify the team without apology, and be fully present at home. Glitch. I'll have slides exported to PDF and a printed 1-page summary ready. Ghosting. I'll set a timer, follow up once, then move on to the next prospect. You are lowering the temperature of future rooms. The point is not to live braced, it is to live prepared. When the day throws its small stones, you will not bleed drama. You will do what you planned when you were calm. Others call it luck, when prepared behavior meets an average amount of chaos. You will call it Tuesday. All of this funnels into the 5th secret, the one that gives the entire morning a North Star, alignment through one governing line. A day without a sentence is a day that can be stolen by the loudest thing. A day with a sentence is a day that can be won by the quietest discipline. Choose one line, not a paragraph, not a poster. A line so short it fits in your mouth, so strong it fits in your bones. Today, I protect the first 3 hours for deep work. Today, I respond to provocation with composure. Today, I move one hard thing, one honest inch. Today, I don't break promises to myself, even small ones. Write it at the top of your page. Put it on a sticky note by your screen. Whisper it under your breath before opening your laptop. It is not magic. It is a magnet. And through the day, when choices appear wearing identical faces, the line will separate them by their alignment. This is the unfair part. While everyone else is negotiating with moods, you are negotiating with a vow. Now let's knit these secrets into a morning that breathes instead of a ritual that chokes. You wake. You do not grab a device. You sit in silence until your mind is no longer the world's hallway. You move your body until your thoughts stop pretending to be cages. You write until lies turn into sentences you can see through. You rehearse a few likely difficulties until your nervous system learns they are survivable. You choose a sentence to govern the day. Then you begin, not with a sprint, but with a clean first step. The step can be laughably small, opening the document you've feared, sending the message you've delayed, putting an apple instead of a distraction within arm's reach. The step is your signature on the contract you wrote an hour ago. The day is now yours to keep. What happens when life refuses to bow to your morning? Because it will. Children need you. Parents call at sunrise. Deadlines land like weather. Illness surprises your plans. Here is where Stoicism is different from fantasy. We do not worship perfect mornings. We protect essential pillars. If silence is stolen by a house that woke before you, steal it back in traffic by turning the radio off and using a red light to breathe. If movement is impossible because injury set a limit, move what you can. Fingers, breath, a stretch that reminds you you're not trapped. If reflection cannot be written, speak it into your phone on a short walk. One thing done well, one thing to repair, one thing to choose. If premeditation feels dark on a dark week, keep it tiny. Name one likely difficulty and one gentle response. If your line shatters by noon, make a new line at 12:01 and win the afternoon. The point is not purity. The point is persistence. Respect does not come to those who keep their plan when the sun shines. It comes to those who keep their priorities when the weather disagrees. Let me show you the cascade these mornings create, because cascades are how you alter a life without announcing it. 10 minutes of silence prints a deliberate question across your day. What is within my power? That question makes you immune to a category of stress you used to swallow. 5 minutes of movement proves you can override comfort. That proof makes it easier to override the impulse to check your phone every time it grumbles. 3 sentences of reflection build a ledger of causes and effects. That ledger clarifies which efforts actually move your life forward. 90 seconds of premeditated difficulty immunize you to ambush. That immunity keeps your relationships cleaner because you stop pouring adrenaline into them. 1 line of alignment gives you a lever. That lever turns ordinary days into days that compound. Compounding is the secret you're really after. Most people believe unfair advantage lives in single spectacular events: introductions, raises, luck. Stoics know the advantage lies in small, unglamorous repetitions that rewire your self-respect. You will begin to notice something that seems minor and is monumental. You stop breaking small promises to yourself. The coffee you said you'd skip, you skip. The message you said you'd send, you send. The 3 pages you said you'd write, you write. Each kept promise leaves a residue of trust inside you. At first, it's thin as dust. Then it becomes a film, then a glaze, then armor. You were not lacking motivation. You were lacking evidence that your word can be believed. Morning is where you manufacture that evidence on schedule. There will be a day when you do none of this. You'll open your eyes straight into a glowing rectangle and inhale someone else's mood. You'll skip the movement and call it rest when it was avoidance. You'll tell yourself you can reflect at night and then binge distraction until you can't remember what happened. You'll walk into trouble surprised by a problem that visits you weekly, and your line, the one you chose, will be broken by lunch. On that day, here is your instruction. Forgive fast and begin again before the day is over. Do not wait for a clean slate. Make one. The fastest way to prolong a ruined morning is to declare the whole day a loss. The fastest way to recover is to claim an afternoon. Stoicism is not a museum of perfect men. It is a workshop where imperfect people learn to restart without theatrics. I want you to feel what this looks like inside a real day. You wake and sit in quiet. The first sentence the mind throws at you is worried. Finances, a relationship, a project. You watch it pass without signing it, like a paper slid across a table you do not need to autograph. 3 breaths. You ask what is within your power this morning, not this year. This morning. The mind answers with something plain. Write the proposal's first page. Text your brother back. Drink water before coffee. You stand. You do 20 squats beside the bed and half smile because you've never been the person who squats before sunrise. The body says, "Oh, we're doing it anyway." In the kitchen, water first, then the page. You open the document and resist the itch to fix yesterday's sentences, new words only. They're ugly at first and then they're less ugly, and then the timer beeps and you close the file because you promised yourself you would. You jot down 3 lines. Yesterday I kept my boundary with that client. I snapped at someone I love. Today I'll apologize by noon and propose a fix. You spend 1 minute expecting difficulty. Power may flicker in the afternoon. The meeting could start late. Someone might question your numbers. You decide your response for each, calmly. Then you write your line for the day. I will protect deep work until 11:30 without negotiation. The phone stays in another room. You are half an hour in and the day is already arranged around a spine you set, not a hook someone else threw. Of course, someone will test your spine. That's ordinary. Your colleague pings you with, "Quick," at 9:05. Old you would answer out of reflex. Present you looks at the line at the top of your page and replies, I'm in deep work until 11:30. Send the context and I'll respond after. No apology, no excess. Watch what happens to your body as you do that. The old, low-grade panic. Will they be mad? Flares, and then cools because your morning has already rehearsed small storms. At 10:40, the power flickers. You close the laptop, pull out the printed one-page summary you made during yesterday's calm, and keep drafting on paper while the rest of the building scatters. The meeting starts late, and you smile internally because you budgeted for human time, not robotic time. Someone questions your numbers. You don't defend. You explain the model once, then ask what would change their mind and write it down for your afternoon block. By noon, you have kept 3 promises to yourself. Tiny ones. But your nervous system can now rest in the knowledge that you are not a liar to you. This is an advantage beyond charisma or luck. It is credibility with the person who steers your life. Unfair will show up to others as you, calm, in rooms where calm is rare. They'll think it's personality, it's morning laws. Your edge will not be loud. It will be the ability to do the right next action while others argue with the weather. It will be the patience to let a process finish instead of sprinting to start 3 new ones. It will be the quiet capacity to not take things personally when they are not personal. These are not gifts you were born with. They are skills you practice before the world is awake enough to stop you. Let me talk to that part of you that is tired, the part that has heard promises before and is wary of new ones. You do not need a 17-step miracle routine that collapses under a Tuesday. You need 5 stones set in a small circle that you walk through each morning until your life recognizes the path. The 5 stones are silence, movement, reflection, rehearsal, and alignment. If you miss one, step on the others. If you miss 2, step on the remaining. If you miss them all, step back on tomorrow. Do not make this holy. Make it habitual. Sacred things in Stoicism are not precious. They are repeatable. A good morning is not a performance. It is plumbing. It carries water to the places that need it and keeps waste from flowing into your kitchen. Do it well, and no one applauds. They simply notice your house doesn't smell like panic. There is one more layer, and it's the one that makes this all feel less like a discipline and more like a way of loving your life. Dedicate your morning to someone beyond yourself, not to impress them, to serve them. When you sit in silence, include their name in your question. What is within my power today that would make their day lighter? When you move, remember that a strong, calm body carries more than its own weight. It carries the tired child, the heavy box, the late-night talk. When you reflect, note where your words pierced when they could have guided. Repair. When you rehearse difficulty, include their likely storms and decide how you'll meet them with steadiness instead of contagion. When you choose your line, let it be one that shapes you into someone they can rely on. Service does not replace self-respect. It proves it. A morning that ends at you is a routine. A morning that exits through you into the world becomes a vocation. And when you slip, and you will, hold yourself the way a good teacher holds a promising student who missed a class, firm about standards, gentle about shame. You missed today. See you tomorrow. We continue. That sentence has rescued more lives than any grand speech, because transformation rarely arrives with trumpets. It arrives with the dull, faithful sound of feet walking the same short path at the start of each day. So here is your invitation, not for someday, but for the next sunrise you are allowed to witness. Before the world bids on your attention, bid on it yourself. Sit in silence long enough to hear your own question. Move your body until your mind stops pretending it is separate from it. Write 3 sentences that turn fog into choice. Expect the ordinary frictions and choose your response while your hands are still warm from exercise. Pick a single line and make it the day's oath. Then live like you meant it. Do this for 7 mornings, not to become a different person by the weekend, but to become more of the person you've been negotiating with for years. Do it for 30, and you will notice you are no longer surprised by yourself when you keep promises. Do it for 90, and people will ask you what changed. Resist the urge to give them a list. Tell them the truth in 1 sentence. I stopped letting chance shape my mornings. Then smile and sit down to another quiet hour where you will, once again, shape your life. The mirror will still reflect you, but now it will reflect decisions that make you proud in private. The calendar will still be crowded, but now its hours will be aligned around something stronger than urgency. The world will still behave like weather, but now you will behave like a lighthouse, fixed, deliberate, useful. And in a time where most people wake up as passengers, that is as close to an unfair advantage as we are allowed. Use it well. You and I have been building a staircase together, 1 deliberate step at a time. We started by learning to read people without bitterness. Then we rebuilt your mornings until they felt like a private victory before the world even woke up. If you've noticed the quiet changes, the steadier breath as you open your laptop, the way your hands no longer tremble when a difficult message arrives, the strange calm in your chest where panic used to live, that's not luck. That is the first confirmation that your life is beginning to trust you. And when your own life starts trusting you, something powerful happens. You stop needing dramatic bursts of motivation. You start operating from standards. The Stoics would say you've begun to be governed by law, your law. Today, I want to take you deeper, beyond morning rituals and into the engine room that runs your entire day. The title sounds aggressive on purpose because I need to awaken that part of you that is tired of bargaining with yourself. 9 habits that make you dangerously disciplined. Dangerous, not to others, but to the parts of you that have profited from your hesitation. Dangerous to apathy. Dangerous to the version of you that only moves when watched. Dangerous, most of all, to the idea that your future is optional. Discipline in the Stoic tradition is not about grimacing your way through misery. It's about freeing yourself from mood so you can do what matters when it matters. Every day, especially on the days you don't feel like it. These 9 habits will not make your life easier. They will make you stronger. There is a difference. The first is a wish. The second is a decision. The first habit is the one that decides the rest. Choose your first act the night before and keep it without negotiation. Not your first dozen tasks. 1 act. You decide after dinner, when your mind is still relatively clear, what tomorrow's opening move will be. It might be to sit at your desk at 6:30 and write the first ugly paragraph of the proposal. It might be to lace your shoes and walk 3 laps around the block before the sun rises. It might be to send the difficult apology you've been postponing. You write it down on a small card and place it where your hand will touch it in the morning. Then you go to bed with the calm of someone who knows what dawn is for. When you wake, you don't negotiate with weather, with mood, with headlines, with other people's urgency. You keep the appointment you made with yourself the night before. This single-kept promise is small in length and enormous in consequence. Why? Because it teaches your nervous system a new rule. We move first, feelings follow. Every time you keep that first act, you weaken the old neural pathway that equated comfort with safety. Your day begins on your terms. And if you miss, you don't write a confession. You start immediately at the next available minute. Stoicism doesn't ask you to be flawless. It demands that you begin again without theatrics. That's the dangerous part, your ability to restart faster than you spiral. From that first kept act, we move to what looks like a simple productivity tactic and is actually a moral stance. The one thing rule for deep work. Every day has noise that looks important and work that is important. The difference is this: noise begs to be done now, work deserves to be done well. Discipline is the courage to choose the latter. You select the one task that most advances your mission, and you build a small fortress around it. 90 minutes if you can, 60 if you must, 30 if you're under siege. The phone lives in another room. Notifications are off, physically off. You shut the door if there is one, and you shut your eyes to the imagined reactions of other people if there isn't. Then you disappear into the real thing, building, writing, designing, learning, rehearsing, solving. The mind will rebel because the mind is addicted to small wins. It wants to clear inboxes, not to construct cathedrals. Breathe through the itch. The first 10 minutes are the toll. The focus that follows is tax-free. Do this every weekday for a month and watch what happens. Projects that used to linger become momentum. You stop performing productivity and start accumulating finished things that cannot be argued with. And here is the Stoic core. You are practicing justice toward your future self. You are giving them an inheritance of completed, valuable work instead of a garage full of half-built schemes. The world may never know the fortress you built around your craft, but it will feel the force of the work that walked out of it. Discipline is not just about doing, it is about designing. That is why the third habit is what I call friction engineering, altering your environment so that your future choices are almost decided in advance. Most people try to overpower their environment. The disciplined quietly rearrange it. If your mornings collapse into scrolling, the phone sleeps in another room with a cheap alarm clock on your nightstand. If you intend to train, your shoes wait by the door and your clothes are set out like a contract. If you want to write before work, your document is already open with a sentence waiting for you to finish. You remove one step of friction between you and the right behavior, and you add one step of friction between you and the wrong one. Put sweets on the top shelf behind a box that makes noise when moved. Put fruit in the front of the refrigerator in a glass bowl that catches your eye. Hide the game controller in a bin with the winter coats. Leave a book face down on the kitchen table so your evening defaults to reading. This is not childish. It is wise. The Stoics spoke of living in accordance with nature. Part of your nature is that you are a creature of convenience. Don't hate that truth. Harness it. Every tiny environmental tweak is a shepherd's staff guiding your future self away from cliffs. Stack enough of these staffs and you stop arguing with yourself all day. You simply flow into the right actions because the path has been lowered on purpose. You engineered a life that carries you when your motivation takes a sick day. The fourth habit sounds like paperwork and feels like power. Visible agreements with yourself. Most people keep their promises in their head. That is where promises go to die. Write your standards where your eyes live. A weekly card on your desk that lists 5 non-negotiables. I begin the day before the world touches my phone. I complete 1 honest block of deep work. I train my body briefly but with presence. I end the day with a 10-minute audit. I do not gossip. These are not tasks to check. They are laws to live. And laws need courts. so you install one. At the end of the day, you mark yes or no next to each law without debate. No paragraphs, no excuses, a mark. Then you total your score for the week and you do the only math that matters. Did I keep my word more often than I broke it? If the answer is yes, you celebrate by telling no one and simply continuing. If the answer is no, you remove one ambition from your list rather than adding 3 new ones. That is discipline, reducing the load until you can carry it every day. This visible agreement creates something precious and rare, self-trust that compounds. You stop playing calendar theatre. Your plans begin to predict your reality, and that is when life gets eerie in the best way. You write, finish chapter 2 on Wednesday morning, and Wednesday morning you finish chapter 2. Not because the universe rearranged itself, but because you did. The 5th habit is emotional armor built in peacetime. Premeditatio malorum, the rehearsal of predictable difficulties and the selection of your response while you are still calm. People call this pessimism. The Stoics called it preparation. Before the meeting, you anticipate the question that always derails you, and you script the answer you'll give, simple and factual, with no defensive salt. Before the commute, you accept that traffic will stretch your patience and decide that today it will be your university for breathing. Before you open social media, you remind yourself that strangers' opinions do not govern your standards, and you limit your time with a tiny timer to prove it. This is emotional jujitsu. You are not trying to stop the punch. You are deciding how you will absorb it and redirect it before it lands. Your nervous system loves this because bodies hate ambushes more than they hate effort. When the hard thing arrives and you act the way you practiced, a quiet pride blooms inside you. I did not become a smaller person because the moment was loud. That pride, repeated, is discipline's favorite food. The 6th habit looks like a social skill and is actually spiritual hygiene, clean boundaries spoken early and simply. The undisciplined life is a life that says yes to everything and wonders where its time went. The disciplined life recognizes that every yes recruits your future. So you learn to say, I can't take that on and keep the commitments I already have. And then you shut up. You learn to answer quick with, I'm in a focused block until 11. Send context and I'll respond after. You learn to protect your creative mornings as if they were rented by someone more important than you, because they are, by your future self. You are not rude. You are clear. Rudeness is sloppy pain flung at others. Clarity is precision that protects both parties from resentment. Discipline requires that you disappoint the right people at the right time so you can keep your promises to the person who must live your life. You. And here is what will surprise you. The more consistent and calm you are about these boundaries, the more people respect you. Not all, but enough. You will lose some invitations and gain a reputation for steadiness. That trade is how serious lives get built. The 7th habit is the one almost no one glamorizes because it doesn't photograph well. Ritualized recovery. We praise the sprint and ignore the breath. But a body and mind that never downshift will eventually refuse to move. Threats to discipline rarely look like laziness. They look like exhaustion disguised as poor character. Your job is to make restoration so structured that it becomes another act of discipline, not an escape from it. Choose a shutdown time and defend it like a morning. Dim light. No screens for 30 to 60 minutes before sleep. A repeated sequence. Tidy the space you'll meet in tomorrow. Lay out your first act's materials. Write your 10-minute audit. Stretch your back. Read a page of something older than your grandparents. Sleep in a cool, dark cave. Wake at a consistent hour. This is boring in the way shipbuilding is boring. The boredom is the point. You are constructing the vessel that carries your ambition. As your sleep becomes less negotiable, your days become less fragile. The world will still be loud. You will simply be strong enough to hear it without shaking. The eighth habit is the quiet metronome that keeps the orchestra honest, the weekly review. 1 hour, same time, same place, without the drama of a new app every month. You list your roles: self, partner or parent, friend, craft, body, finances, community, and write one truth under each: what moved forward, what stalled, and what one action will create momentum next week. You scan your calendar to ensure the one thing block exists every day, even if it's shorter on some days, and you schedule it before anything else is allowed to live there. You look at your visible agreements and adjust only when you must. You delete a commitment you cannot honor with excellence. You add nothing shiny. The review is where you trade fantasy for fidelity. The Stoics would love this hour because it refuses to let wishes masquerade as plans. Over time, this rhythm tunes your life. You stop waking up surprised by your own obligations. You stop promising that the next season will be different. You make this season different by releasing one illusion per week and replacing it with one structure. Dangerous discipline is not a mood that you ride. It is a rhythm that you keep. The ninth habit is the one that prevents discipline from turning into vanity. Aim your discipline at service. Power without purpose is posturing. Power with purpose is medicine. Ask each morning and in each weekly review: who benefits when I keep my standards? A client whose chaos will be calmed by your preparation. A partner who will sleep better because you handled the thing when you said you would. A younger version of you who didn't have anyone model steadiness. A stranger who will never know your name but will be helped by your work. When you tie your discipline to justice, the Stoic virtue that asks you to give others their due, your habits stop feeling like self-obsession and start feeling like contribution. This shift is not sentimental. It is strategic. When discipline is for you alone, it collapses under fatigue. When discipline is for something larger, your spine stays straight on days when motivation hides. You are no longer trying to impress, you are trying to help. And the human spirit has always found extra strength when it knows someone else needs it. These 9 habits do not live in separate rooms. They share a kitchen. The first act chosen the night before feeds your one thing block. The one thing block is guarded by friction engineering and by boundaries that make space for real work. Visible agreements ensure you track the keeping of these laws. Premeditated difficulties inoculate your emotions so your hands can keep moving when reality tests you. Ritualized recovery rebuilds the muscles you used. The weekly review arranges the whole orchestra for the days ahead, and the orientation toward service reminds you why any of it matters. Practice them together long enough and people will mistake your life for luck. They will not see the law you wrote for yourself and the vows you kept in rooms no one applauds. That is fine. Let them keep their theories. You will keep your results. So how do you begin without being swallowed by enthusiasm and then spit out by overwhelm? You begin with a single kept law for 7 days. The first act. That's it. Pick it tonight. Lay out what you need. Put your phone where it cannot vote. Wake, keep, mark a quiet yes. On day 2, do it again. On day 3, keep it ugly if you must. On day 4, you will want to negotiate. Do not. On day 5, you will feel the stirrings of belief. Do not celebrate. Just keep. On day 6, life will attack. Win the afternoon if you lose the morning. On day 7, sit with your small string of yeses and notice the feeling you rarely let yourself feel because you never trusted it would last. Relief. Relief that you are not a liar to yourself. Relief that discipline is not a mountain. It is a step you are willing to take while no one is watching. Next week, add the one thing block and nothing else. The week after, add friction engineering, then boundaries, then visible agreements, then rehearsal, then recovery, then review, then service. Stack them like stones you can step on, not like a wall that collapses on you. You are not auditioning for a role called disciplined person. You are becoming someone whose disciplines are light enough to carry and heavy enough to matter. No one can do this for you. Everyone in your future will feel the difference when you do. Come back with me for a moment to that image we've returned to so often. The inner room, the chair by the window, the light moving across the floor as the day unfolds. Picture those 9 habits as 9 anchors fastened discreetly beneath the surface. The wind still blows, the tide still rises, boats still race past, and storms still blacken the sky. But your vessel does not drift. It turns when you decide to turn. It moves when you choose to move. It rests when the work is done. That steadiness is what people will call dangerous, because it makes you difficult to manipulate and impossible to derail with trivialities. You become, piece by modest piece, a person who does not need permission to live by standards. If you forget, if you fall, if you disappear into an old week and wake up nauseous with regret, do not perform a tragedy. Perform a return. One kept first act, tomorrow. That is how every disciplined life is rescued, from the small end, not the loud one. In a world addicted to declarations, you will become known for something rarer, follow-through. And the beautiful thing about follow-through is that it doesn't need to be announced. It is felt in the projects finished, in the bodies carried, in the relationships steadied, in the nights that end with a clean conscience. 9 habits. Not to make you rigid, but to make you reliable. Not to make you admired, but to make you useful. Not to make you famous, but to make you free. Start tonight. Choose the first act. Then live tomorrow as if your standards were not negotiable, because they aren't. And when someone asks you a month from now what changed, tell them the only sentence that matters. I stopped letting my feelings decide who I am. Then get back to work. The world can wait 5 seconds for your answer. Your life cannot. You and I have been laying rails in the dark for a while now. Mornings that make you steady, boundaries that make you clear, habits that make you reliable even when no one is watching. If you've been practicing, you've felt it. The quiet confidence that appears when your day starts to obey you. But there's a deeper turning we haven't finished yet, because no matter how carefully you arrange your schedule, if your thoughts are a crowd, noisy, anxious, contradictory, your life will keep tripping over itself. The Stoics would say it simply, the external disorder you're battling is a mirror of the internal disorder you're tolerating. So today, we go to the source. We're going to build, patiently and precisely, the mental architecture that makes a disciplined life feel not just possible, but inevitable. This is not a productivity tutorial dressed in a toga. I'm not going to hand you 20 hacks and tell you the ocean will part. I'm going to hand you a small set of governing practices, simple to describe, powerful when repeated, that organize your thoughts so your thoughts stop organizing you. When the mind becomes orderly, presence grows heavy in your voice. Decisions lose their static. Relationships stop living in a courtroom. Work begins to flow like a river over clean stone. And you, finally, can stop managing crises you created unconsciously and start managing the life you chose. That's what I mean by build yourself. Not a costume, a structure. Let's begin where Stoicism always begins, with reality on paper. The first practice is the plainest and most radical. Turn thoughts into objects. Most people don't think, they ruminate. They replay half-remembered sentences. They audition outcomes that never occur. They stack what-ifs until their mind is a precarious tower. Thinking feels exhausting, not because thought is hard, but because storage is heavy. Your head is a bad warehouse. You cannot file, search, or triage there. Marcus Aurelius didn't trust his memory with his philosophy. He wrote, "Not for the world, for himself." You need the same humility. Each morning, before the world touches you, sit with a cheap pen and a page that has no audience. Dump the raw material, the worries trying to rent space, the fragments of ideas, the obligations hiding in the corners. Don't edit, don't decorate, empty. Then, and only then, you begin to think. Draw lines through what is untrue. Circle what is yours to decide. Underline what is simply loud. Give each thought a verb. Not, "The launch scares me," but "I will ship a small version on Friday and learn." Not, "They don't respect me," but "I will state my boundary once and move on." Not, "I'm behind," but "I will finish the next ugly inch by noon." Writing does not make life easier. It makes it visible. It turns fog into furniture you can move with your hands. Do this for 7 days and watch your mornings stop drowning you. Do it for 30 and watch your afternoons stop apologizing for your mornings. Do it for 90 and strangers will call you calm. They will not see the pen. That's fine. Let them think it's temperament. You will know it's a practice. Clarity loves containers. The second practice is the Stoic split. 2 rooms for every thought. The room of control and the room of not my job. Epictetus built an entire life on this doorframe. Some things are up to us and some are not. Anxiety is often a failure of categorization. You're scrubbing windows in a house you don't own. When a worry arrives, you ask, with ruthless kindness, "Which room is this?" If it's in the not my job room, other people's opinions, the weather, the past, you step away. Not with sarcasm, with discipline. You refuse to pay attention's rent where attention has no rights. If it lives in the control room, your choices, your standards, your effort, you act. You define the next visible motion and you do it, even if it's embarrassingly small. This split does not numb you, it frees you. The mind calms when it knows what to ignore and what to do. You cannot organize what you won't own, and you cannot stop touching what you secretly want to control. So be blunt with yourself, label hard, then leave other people's rooms clean and dark. Now a deeper refinement, organizing not just by control, but by character. The third practice is to sort your tasks under virtues, not categories. Most planning dies in logistics. You stack meetings under work, errands under life, exercise under health. It looks tidy and it feels empty. The Stoic mind moves differently. It sorts by who you're becoming. Courage, temperance, justice, wisdom. Old words that become new when they hold your day. That email you're avoiding. Courage. The budget you keep postponing. Wisdom. The apology you owe. Justice. The glass of water before coffee. Temperance. When you organize by virtue, you rescue tasks from boredom and return them to meaning. The why stops being a poster and becomes a lever. You don't just schedule exercise, you train temperance at 7 a.m. You don't just follow up, you practice justice to your future client at 3 p.m. This is how ordinary tasks begin to shape extraordinary character. You assign them to the muscles they build. If you stopped here, writing, splitting by control, sorting by virtue, your life would already feel lighter. But there is a persistent thief that picks pockets in organized homes, open loops. The mind will not rest while it suspects you have forgotten a promise. So we install a nightly audit, the fourth practice, the day's courtroom without cruelty. 10 quiet minutes. 3 questions that do not negotiate. First, where did I live my standards today? Write 1 sentence you're allowed to be proud of. You need to see yourself doing well, or your mind will hoard shame. Second, where did I fall? Write a fact, not a melodrama. I broke my morning rule and let my phone speak first. Third, what will I do differently tomorrow in 1 step? Not 10 vows, 1 adjustment. Phone in the kitchen. Paper on the pillow. Then you close the book and you are done. You are not your performance. You are your commitment to adjust. That permission to course correct without spectacle is the hinge between a life that grows and a life that becomes a museum of guilt. The 5th practice is a lens you carry into every hour. Turn impressions into inspections. Epictetus warned that the first reaction is not the judge, it is the witness. The mind throws up an impression. He disrespected me. This will fail. I can't handle this. And if you grant it authority, it writes your day. Organized thought slows the moment down. You ask, is it true? Is it useful? Is it mine to act on? If the answer to the first 2 is no, you let it pass. If the answer to the third is yes, you translate the feeling into emotion. Instead of, I'm overwhelmed, which instructs nothing, you say, I will clear the desk, write the 3-line summary, and begin the first paragraph. Feelings are weather. You are the builder. Inspections keep your hands on wood and nails, not on clouds. Order needs oxygen. The 6th practice is the architecture of attention. Protect 1 deep block and distribute your shallow tasks on purpose. Thought cannot organize itself in a hallway where everyone is shouting. Choose the same 60 to 90-minute window each weekday and defend it with an almost comical seriousness. No phone in the room. A written goal for the block. A cheap timer. Then descend. The work you place here is the work that moves the story forward. Writing, designing, solving, rehearsing, learning. Everything else, email, forms, calendar Tetris, gets 2 or 3 small chorales later in the day. This is not snobbery, it's physics. Brains switch slowly. Attention frays with each switch. You are organizing not just your tasks, but the neurochemical state required for them. After 2 weeks, you will notice a feeling you may not have met since childhood. Absorption. After 6, others will notice your output. They will ask for your app. Don't give them an app. Give them a sentence. I protect 1 block. But life isn't a monastery. People, alerts, crises, they will arrive. That's why the 7th practice is mental triage, a short script for interruptions that keeps your order intact. When something lands in your lap, you ask 3 fast questions. 1. Does this truly belong to me? If not, redirect without apology. 2. If it is mine, what is the smallest action that honors it now? Do that in 2 minutes or less. 3. If it requires more, Where does it live on my map? Then you put it there and return to your block. The undisciplined mind treats every knock like a fire. The organized mind installs smoke detectors, exits, and a fireproof door around what matters. You are not cold, you are clear. The eighth practice is what keeps you human in the middle of this machinery. Clean language with yourself. Disorganized thoughts breed disorganized words, and disorganized words breed disorganized lives. Pay attention to absolutes. Always, never, ruined, impossible. These words turn molehills into mountains in a single breath. Replace them with specifics. Not, I never follow through, but I broke my 7 a.m. promise today. Not, this is ruined, but this draft needs 2 hours of tightening. Praise yourself specifically too. Vague self-love is just as useless as vague self-loathing. I noticed the urge to check my phone and I chose the page. That sentence teaches your nervous system what rightness felt like. Your inner dialogue is not decoration, it is code. You are programming a mind that will either misfile everything or place things where you can find them when it counts. The ninth practice is premeditatio malorum for cognition, anticipating the exact thought traps that derail you and building counter habits in advance. You already know your patterns. Perhaps you catastrophize when a plan shifts. Perhaps you crumble under imagined judgment. Perhaps you get lost in perfectionism's polite paralysis. Don't wait for the trap to spring. Name it on paper, write the sentence it always says, and prepare the answer you will give next time. When I feel the urge to perfect, I will ship the rough version by 3 p.m., then schedule a refinement block. When I imagine their criticism, I will ask for one specific piece of feedback and ignore the rest. When plans change, I will restate my one line for the day and win the next hour. You are not trying to live without weather. You are learning where the shore curves and how to sail it. All of this scaffolding requires what the Stoics considered a virtue as practical as it is profound. Temperance. The 10th practice is limit design, gentle constraints that make order easier than chaos. You decide how many decisions you will make about food each week, 2 planned meals repeated, how many social platforms you will inhabit, 1 or none on weekdays, how many commitments you will carry this season, 3 major, 2 minor. You make your wardrobe less theatrical. You buy the same pen. You reduce the number of inboxes that can shout your name. This isn't ascetic pride, it's bandwidth conservation. The mind organizes best when it isn't constantly choosing between 10 flavors of essentially the same thing. Constraints are not prisons. They are rails. Trains don't resent rails. There is a point in every transformation where the work threatens to become performance, tidy systems, pretty spreads, the aesthetic of structure. The Stoic test is brutally simple. Does your order make you more useful? The 11th practice is service orientation. Tie each organized thought to a human outcome. Your deep block will ship value that helps someone breathe. Your boundary will produce reliability that someone can plan around. Your clear self-talk will spare someone the shrapnel of your self-contempt. Order, without service, calcifies into control. Service makes order elastic, generous, strong. You are not building a museum. You are building a workshop that feeds a city. Now, how do we weave this into a day that feels like a life, not a list? You wake without borrowing noise. You sit with paper and pour the clutter until your mind is light enough to aim. You place each thought in its room, then in its virtue. You state one governing line for the day, patient, courageous, honest, steady, and you put it where your eyes will trip over it. You enter your deep block and move the story. You triage interruptions with a short script and a soft jaw. You speak to yourself with the accuracy you demand from others. You anticipate the traps and step aside when they arrive. You descend into the necessary shallow tasks on schedule, not by habit. You shut down with the audit that closes the loops. Then you sleep in a room that reminds your nervous system what darkness and quiet used to feel like. This is not rigidity, it is choreography. The dancer still breathes. Let's walk this through one honest day so you can feel the texture of it. The alarm lands, and so does the old reflex. Reach for the phone. Your hand pauses because last night your future self placed the phone in the kitchen and a notebook on the pillow. 3 minutes of writing, and you can already see 2 lies you would have believed all day. That you have no time and that everything is on fire. The lies don't survive ink. You draw the line between yours and not yours, someone else's delay in one room, your first paragraph in the other. Your line for the day reads, steady and clear. The deep block arrives. You close the door, you breathe twice longer than your impatience, and you push words through the ugly part until they begin to stick to each other. A ping vibrates somewhere you can't hear. Your body flinches and then relaxes because it remembers this room has laws. Later, a calendar shuffle tries to steal the afternoon. You triage, you move, you don't bleed. Evening comes, and you want to collapse into the soft addiction. You audit instead. You tell the truth once, adjust once, and give yourself back to the person who needs you tomorrow. You. But what about the days that knock everything over? They ask. The Stoic answer is not comforting, and it is the only one that works. Pivot inside your principles, not outside them. If illness visits, your line becomes care with presence. If grief arrives, your deep block becomes tears and phone calls and paperwork done bravely. If catastrophe lands, your categories tighten, not loosen. Yours and not yours become survival. Virtues carry you like beams carry a roof in a storm. You won't stay on track. You'll keep a single flame lit in the wind because you practiced lighting it every morning when the air was still. There's a final layer only you can apply: meaning. Organization is scaffolding. Hope is the house. Why are you doing this? To become impressive? You'll quit. To be safe? Life refuses that contract. To look calm? The performance will crack. Choose a reason large enough to be worth your order, to be someone your younger self could lean on, to shoulder a craft that outlives you, to make a home where anxiety doesn't set the tone, to be a quiet force in rooms that shake. Write the reason on the inside cover of your notebook. Look at it when you forget. You will forget. That's human. The notebook is there to help you remember on schedule. If this all sounds simple, good. It must be. Complexity is how we hide from ourselves with style. You don't need a new app. You need a handful of laws you keep even when your feelings ask for a mistrial. You don't need new stationery. You need sentences you trust. You don't need a new life. You need a mind you can live inside without begging it to be quiet. Let's end where we started, with the mirror. Tomorrow morning, it will reflect more than a face. It will show a builder who keeps small promises that become large structures. It will show someone who knows where their responsibility ends and begins. It will show a person who can hold a thought without being held by it, who can let go without surrendering, who can begin again without a drum roll. That reflection is not an accident. It is the result of a mind you organized on purpose until your days began to follow its lines. If you do nothing else, do this for 1 week. Write what's in your head before anyone rents it. Choose one virtue to practice on purpose and end the day by closing the loops with one adjustment for tomorrow. 7 days, no speeches, just quiet law. Then notice how the air in your life changes. Lighter in the morning, cleaner at noon, breathable at night. Repeat it for a month and people will tell you that you seem different. They'll say you're lucky, or in a season, or have great willpower. Smile. Let them keep their theories. You will know the secret is older and humbler. You organized your thoughts and your life upgraded as a consequence. This is what it means to build yourself, not with noise, with order, not with force, with form, not with a costume, with a constitution. When the storm comes, and it will, you won't ask for calm seas. You will stand on the deck of a ship you built plank by plank in the quiet, and you will steer. That is Stoicism, practical, human, grounded. And that is your invitation. Begin tonight. Put a blank page where your head will land. In the morning, fill it. Draw the lines. Choose the virtue. Keep the block. Close the loops. Then live the day as if your inner order were the most valuable thing you own, because it is. You and I have been walking a narrow road together for a while. Through mornings you now govern, habits you now respect, thoughts you've begun to organize like a careful craftsman arranging tools on a bench. If you've practiced even a fraction of what we built, you've felt it. The quiet shift from being dragged by the day to directing it. Your breath sits lower in your body. Your words arrive cleaner. You no longer apologize for existing. But something else happens when you gain this inner order. You start to notice what fractures your presence out there in the world. Behaviors that drain the respect you've earned. Gestures so common we mistake them for personality. The Stoics wouldn't flatter you here. They would point with a steady finger and name the habits that make you look weak, not to humiliate you, but to free you. Because once you see them, you can refuse them. And once you refuse them, your strength stops leaking through cracks of habit you never meant to carve. So let's do what we always do. Speak plainly, act precisely, and leave the room cleaner than we found it. 6 behaviors, subtle, ordinary, socially acceptable, that quietly erode your credibility and make you look weaker than you are. We will not attack them with noise. We will replace them with a higher standard, the way a mason replaces crumbling brick with stone that can carry weight. This isn't about pretending to be invincible. It's about living so aligned that even your quiet moments carry the intention of someone who cannot be cheaply moved. The first behavior that makes you look weak is the reflex to explain yourself to anyone who looks at you sternly. Explanation has a clean, noble side. It clarifies, teaches, aligns. But there's another version, the anxious torrent you release the moment you sense disagreement. You say yes and immediately narrate your yes, as if it needed an escort. You say no and douse it with a speech, as if a boundary must audition for permission. You make a decision and then rehearse to the world how hard that decision was, how much you weighed it, how afraid you were. The room hears the tremble underneath. You are asking them to adopt your choice so you can avoid the solitude of standing by it. The Stoics would call this a misuse of words. Words are tools. You are using them as a bandage for insecurity. Real strength isn't the absence of doubt. It's the refusal to pour your doubt onto everyone else. Practice the discipline of the sufficient sentence. When you decide, state the decision in clean language and let the air carry it. I can't take that on and keep my other commitments. Full stop. We're moving forward with this plan. Full stop. No, thank you. Full stop. You owe courtesy. You do not owe theatre. The first time you do this, your stomach will audition for a gymnastics team. That's good. You are retraining a nervous system that believes survival depends on convincing everyone to approve. It doesn't. You will notice two immediate changes when you stop over-explaining. Your own mind quiets because you're no longer drafting press releases for choices you already made. And the people around you rise to meet your clarity. Those who respect you will adjust. Those who depended on your gush to push you around will find another fountain to drink from. That's not cruelty. That's hygiene. If an explanation is truly useful when it educates, calibrates, or repairs, you'll know because it will be short, specific, and offered once. Anything beyond that is a loan from your dignity to someone else's comfort you don't need to grant. The second behavior that makes you look weak is the habit of broadcasting fragility, performing how overwhelmed you are, how busy, how exhausted, how persecuted by the ordinary demands of an adult life. Everyone gets tired. Everyone gets busy. What people are quietly measuring is not your load, but your language about it. When you narrate strain as if it were unique to you, you ask for special handling. You begin to outsource the responsibility for your standards to the mercy of other people's sympathy. The Stoic lens is sharp here. Your circumstances are not your identity. You don't have to lie or pretend you're made of marble. You simply learn to tell the truth without recruiting pity. Say less about the weight and more about the plan. It's a heavy week. I've rearranged my mornings to protect deep work. We're in a hard season. I'm making sleep and walks non-negotiable. Notice the difference. You're not advertising strain as a badge, you're demonstrating stewardship. Broadcasting fragility also shows up as dramatized deadlines. You show up late and tell a saga. You blow past your word and deliver an elegy. The story is elaborate because it's doing a job. It tries to make your failure feel inevitable. You don't need that job. Try this instead. I missed. Here's the fix and the safeguard. 10 words, not 50. Weakness asks for indulgence. Strength asks for responsibility. There is a second, quieter form of broadcasting fragility, the constant apology for existing. Sorry, quick question. Sorry, is now a bad time? Sorry, just wanted to follow up. Politeness is honorable. Preemptive self-erasure is not. Replace sorry with thank you where it belongs. Thank you for your time. Thank you for the update. Or with nothing at all. Your sentence can live without a bow. You will feel a small rebellion in your chest when you first remove these verbal curtsies. Keep going. You're not taking up more space. You're taking up your space appropriately. Those who need you to shrink were never looking for collaboration. They were looking for compliance. The third behavior that makes you look weak is the refusal to let silence stand. You rush to fill every pause with babble, with jokes that undercut your own point, with extra proof no one asked for, with nervous laughter stapled to the ends of your sentences like a sorry note. Silence exposes you to your own heartbeat. It also exposes other people to the weight of your words. The undisciplined fear that exposure and grab for any sound to cover it. The disciplined train for it. You learn the sentence that ends where it should end. You deliver it in full and then allow 3 beats of quiet to do what clothing never can. Let your presence breathe. In negotiation, silence is a staircase you invite the other party to step down before you decide how far you'll move. In leadership, silence is the final punctuation that frees your team to process their roles without having to fight your anxiety. In relationships, silence is the space where comprehension happens. It prevents you from talking someone into agreeing with what they haven't understood. There is a further layer, the habit of over-promising inside silence. People fear the breath after "I can deliver by Thursday," so they keep talking until they've volunteered for Monday. The Stoic practice here is to speak once and then respect your own period. If someone needs more, they will ask. If they don't, you kept your scope intact. To build comfort with silence, train alone. Read a paragraph aloud and end on the period. Close your mouth. Let your body experience that nothing terrible happens when you don't perform the encore. Do this in small rooms so you can do it in big ones. When you carry silence calmly, you project what you actually are building, control over yourself. People call that confidence. It is better than confidence. It is credibility. The fourth behavior that makes you look weak is negotiating your boundaries after you've set them. You say, "I don't talk about colleagues who aren't here," and then 5 minutes later you join the dissection. You say, "I train at 7," and then you become a ghost in your own gym the moment a text pings with glitter. You say, "I can't make that deadline if we add 3 more features," and then you deliver at 3 in the morning because you were afraid of disappointing an appetite that grows by feeding. Boundaries don't fail because they're unpopular. They fail because you design them as wishes instead of rules. A boundary is a law you pass inside your city, not a suggestion you submit to the crowd. The Stoics took pride not in stubbornness, but in consistency. The world learned what to expect from them because they learned what to expect from themselves. To rebuild this, stop crowdsourcing your number. Write your few non-negotiables as if your future depends on them, because it does. Tie each to a value, not a vibe. I don't work past 8 because my presence at home isn't a luxury. It's my justice to my family. I don't accept meetings in my deep block because wisdom is something I owe my craft. I don't answer gossip because temperance guards my mouth. Then practice the most challenging part. Let other people have their feelings. They are allowed to be annoyed that your standards have teeth. They are allowed to prefer the previous version of you who was easier to move. You are allowed to hold steady and be kind at the same time. Hold steady means you repeat your line calmly once and continue. Be kind means you don't weaponize your boundary as a moral crown. You wear it as your responsibility. Every time you keep a line you drew, your reputation with yourself strengthens. Every time you redraw it to accommodate urgency you didn't create, you issue a memo to your nervous system that your word is negotiable. That is the real loss, not the missed meeting, not the unhappy co-worker, the erosion of self-trust. You matter too much to keep paying that price. The fifth behavior that makes you look weak is building your identity on reaction instead of principle. You live as a thermostat wired to other people's moods. If they're cold, you heat up. If they're heated, you cool down. If someone treats you with indifference, you become a megaphone for your own worth. If someone treats you with awe, you shrink to avoid their imagined envy. This looks like empathy on the surface. It's not. It's a subtle form of people-pleasing that can wear saintly clothes. The Stoic remedy is to replace reactivity with orientation. Before you enter a room, choose the virtue that will govern you there. In this meeting, I will practice justice. I'll elevate facts over personalities. At dinner, I will practice presence. My phone is not a guest. With this client, I will practice courage. I'll say what will help, not what will be applauded. These pre-decisions turn rooms from weather systems into arenas where you train. The effect on your presence is immediate. People feel the stability. They may test it. That's human. Calm, repeated principle outlasts every test. Reactivity also shows up as the compulsion to answer every challenge, correct every slight, enter every arena. It's the energy of someone who can't stand a single pebble of misunderstanding to remain unflipped. The cost is enormous. You abandon your mission to manage perception. Choose your fights in advance. Choose them by mission, not by mood. If a correction will materially improve the work, make it once. If it will simply improve your image, let the stone lie. A strong person can carry a pocketful of pebbles of being misunderstood without dumping them onto the floor of every room. In time, your outcomes will exonerate you better than your mouth ever could. The sixth behavior that makes you look weak is performing strength instead of practicing it. You create an image of hardness, a refusal to feel, a disdain for need, a sermon against rest, a sarcasm that keeps tenderness from getting near the places you're afraid to be seen. It reads as edge. It's actually fear. The Stoics were not statues. They felt. They simply refused to let their feelings draft their choices. Anyone can bark, "I don't care," while scrolling to see who noticed their silence. It takes a different kind of backbone to admit, "That hurt," and then choose your behavior by standards anyway. Practiced strength is boring on the surface and unstoppable underneath. It looks like you keeping the promise you made to your craft on a day when no one is watching. It looks like you making the apology you owe without rehearsing their response in your head and weaponizing it later. It looks like you taking rest as seriously as work, not because you're fragile, but because you plan to be formidable for a long time. It looks like you asking for help with clarity. "This is the specific piece I need," instead of vague signals that make others guess your heart. Projected strength will always need a larger audience to survive. Practice strength can work in silence for years and still move mountains when the door finally opens. Now, how do you transform these behaviors without turning your life into a theater of self-improvement? The answer is what we've been doing all along. Make small vows and keep them. Choose one conversation this week where you will answer with the sufficient sentence and stop talking. Choose one moment of stress where you will name the weight once and then describe your plan instead of your pain. Choose one meeting where your period ends, and you let the silence do some work for you. Choose one boundary and let it live long enough to irritate someone who expected access to your old version. Choose one room and decide your governing virtue before you enter. Choose one action of practiced strength you will keep when no one can see the keeping. That's it. 6 choices, 1 each. Not for the world, for your reputation with yourself. Let me show you what this looks like inside a day that will test you, because the day always tests you. You wake with the usual friction, the hand that wants the phone, the mind that wants to announce the chaos of the week. You sit anyway. You write a single line that sounds like law. "Today I practice steadiness over spectacle." You enter the first call, and someone pushes your timeline casually, like they're rearranging furniture in your house. The old reflex winds up, the justification, the story. You answer with the sufficient sentence, "We can deliver by Friday with the current scope." Changing scope moves delivery to Wednesday next week. Silence. You let it stand. They shift in their chair. You do not. The next room is a hallway where 2 colleagues begin to peel apart a third whose name is absent. Your boundary speaks before habit can grab a soft chair. "I don't talk about teammates who aren't here. What do you need from me directly?" They smirk. You breathe. You exit intact. Later, a message hits your chest sideways. Someone misunderstands your contribution and praises loudly the person who arrived last. Old, you would open a courtroom in your head and call witnesses. Present you chooses one pebble to carry and returns to the task that will, in a week, make the truth too heavy to ignore. You train at 7, even though you'd rather narrate your fatigue. You keep the set. You eat quietly. You call the person you love and say the one sentence that fixes what you broke yesterday, not the paragraph that proves how tortured you feel. You go to sleep without scrolling for validation. You close your day with the audit, where you stood, where you slipped, what you will do tomorrow differently by 1 small inch. You turn out the light. This is not glamorous. It is sovereign. People will notice, not immediately. Gradually, then all at once. They will notice that you don't pour your anxiety into their ears. They will notice that your no doesn't come with an essay. They will notice that your yes arrives with reliability. They will notice that in rooms where others fracture into performance, you become simpler, clearer, quieter, the way a mountain makes a valley hush without trying. Some will be drawn to that gravity. Some will resent it, because your steadiness rejects their favorite games. Both responses are information. Neither is your assignment. Your assignment is to become so aligned that even when life shakes the table, the cup of your standards barely trembles. And if you fail, and you will, do not build a museum around the moment. Do not write a monologue about how hard it is to change. Do not beg the world to co-sign your regret. Do the next right thing with the same calm you would have used if you never tripped. I over-explained. Next call, I'll use the sufficient sentence. I dramatized my load. This afternoon, I'll share the plan, I broke my boundary. I'll reset it once and hold I chased a pebble. I'm going back to the boulder that builds I performed hardness. I'll practice strength. You do not need a rebrand. You need a return. 6 behaviors removed like splinters from a palm. 6 replacements installed like beams in a house that plans to stand. Stop over-explaining. Practice the sufficient sentence. Stop broadcasting fragility. Steward your state. Stop fearing silence. Let your period be a wall that holds. Stop redrawing your boundaries. Treat them like law. Stop living in reaction. Walk into rooms on purpose. Stop performing hardness. Practice steady strength in private. This is not about looking strong so people treat you better. It's about being strong so you can treat your own life better, and the lives entrusted to you. The irony is that when you live like this, you will look strong, not glamorous, not intimidating. Strong in the way a good bridge is strong. It carries weight without announcing every car that crosses. We'll end where we always end, with the mirror, the honest witness. Tomorrow morning, when it reflects you, it won't only show a face. It will show a promise that you will speak like a person who means what they say, that you will hold your life with the gravity of someone who knows their hours are not cheap, that you will move through rooms without selling your integrity for 5 seconds of approval. If you keep that promise for a handful of days, you will feel a lightness in your chest that doesn't depend on applause. That lightness is not emptiness. It is the weight you set down when you stopped carrying habits that made you look smaller than you are. So take a breath. Choose one behavior to retire today and one strength to practice in its place. Speak the sentence without the speech. Hold the boundary without the bruise. Win the silence without grabbing a joke to hide behind. Then, go do something useful, quietly. That is Stoicism. That is wisdom. That is how you stop looking weak in a world that confuses volume with power and start living with the kind of strength that doesn't need to announce itself to be believed. You and I have been walking this road long enough for you to feel the difference. How a day changes when your standards wake up before your excuses do. how a room quiets when you decide to speak in sentences instead of apologies, how your life begins to obey you when your thoughts are no longer a crowd. In the last script, we stripped away the behaviors that made you look weak. You saw how over-explaining, redrawing boundaries, and performing strength leaked your authority by the teaspoon. You began to practice sufficiency, steadiness, and clean language. If you kept even a sliver of that work, you noticed something subtle. People started listening differently, not because you shouted, because your presence thickened. The Stoics would nod here and say, "Good. Now make that quiet deliberate." Today, I want to hand you something that doesn't glitter, but changes the temperature of every space you enter. 10 silent moves that command instant authority. Not the brittle kind that needs title, volume, or validation to stand. The kind that settles in the body, clarifies the eyes, slows the breath, and makes words heavier when they finally arrive. These moves aren't tricks. They are silent agreements you make with yourself, standards you keep in private, so that public moments no longer require performance. As we walk through them, don't hunt for hacks. Listen for vows. Pick one, live it for a week, then stack another. Authority is not bestowed. It is compounded. The quiet starts where it always starts, with how you choose to inhabit your body. You've seen it before, and you didn't need a lecture to identify it. The person who enters a room as if they belong to themselves. Their spine isn't rigid, it's aligned. Their shoulders aren't puffed, they're open. Their chin doesn't tilt up in false superiority. It rests level with the horizon. This is not choreography. It's correspondence. The body corresponding to a mind that has decided to be here. The Stoics treated posture as more than etiquette. It was a reminder. When Marcus Aurelius sat to write, the act itself straightened him. He was an emperor, yes, but he wrote as a student. Feet planted, breath steady, attention undivided. Your posture is a letter you send to your nervous system. If you slouch into your life, your mind will oblige and fold around distraction. If you stand in alignment, your thoughts begin to stack instead of scatter. Practice this without an audience. At your desk, place both feet flat. Lengthen your spine from tailbone to crown. Let your ribs soften to release unnecessary war. In conversation, keep your shoulders relaxed but engaged, as if your shoulder blades were sliding into the back pockets of your coat. Don't freeze, be available. Let your hands rest where they aren't apologizing, on the table, by your sides, loosely joined. This isn't about looking imposing, it's about being organized. The quiet confidence of good posture does not say, "Look at me." It says, "I'm here, and I will carry this moment with care." That message lands before any syllable does. People will not know why they trust you more. They will only feel that the scaffolding of your presence can carry weight. Once the body is anchored, your eyes become the front door to your authority. There is a way to meet a gaze that doesn't grasp and doesn't flee. You've likely been on both sides of the mistake. The stare that tries to dominate and the glance that keeps escaping like a loose bird. Neither builds trust. The Stoic phrase, "hold fast to what is," can be lived with your eyes. When someone speaks to you, actually look at them. Soft, steady, unhurried. You are not searching their face for evidence to confirm your suspicion or for the next chance to interrupt. You are giving their words a landing place. This is not a contest. It's an invitation. A practical exercise. Imagine your gaze as a calm hand resting on the conversation itself. When they talk, you listen until the meaning, not just the sounds, arrives. When you talk, You place your words as if you were setting a glass of water where both of you can reach it. If you feel your eyes dart, notice where they go. To the door, escape. To the phone, boredom. To the floor, self-doubt. Bring them back without drama, quietly. The effect is profound. People feel seen, and feeling seen is the first rung on the ladder of trust. If you must disagree, keep the same gaze. Authority doesn't squint to harden itself. It stays open while it speaks a firm truth. The body hears the message you deliver through your eyes. I don't need to win. I need to be honest. That honesty, multiplied, becomes reputation. And reputation becomes authority you don't have to announce. Words next. Not more of them. Less. The most underused instrument of authority is the pause. Weakness panics in the gap between sentences and stuffs it with fillers. Like, a laugh that undercuts the point. A cascade of justifications that sounds like a hostage letter from your decision to your fear. Strength ends a sentence where it should end and lets the period be a wall that can hold. The Stoics wrote in language that weathered centuries because they refused to dress thoughts in costumes. Say the thing, then let it land. At first, the silence will feel like a room you forgot to furnish. Your chest might rush you to fill it. Breathe. Authority and oxygen share a rhythm. A sentence worth hearing requires space around it. That space communicates three truths without a word. You're not pleading, you're not afraid of your own idea, and you're giving others the dignity to think before they must respond. In negotiation, a pause invites the other party to reveal their real position. In leadership, a pause announces that the instruction is complete. The next move belongs to the listener. In love, a pause prevents the violence of speaking over a feeling you just asked someone to share. Practice at home. Read a page out loud and place your tongue on the roof of your mouth for one beat after each period. Feel the discomfort. Grow larger than it. When silence belongs to you, rooms do too. But stillness isn't only for your mouth. It's for your moods. There's a false doctrine circulating that equates volatility with authenticity. If you're not leaking, you're lying. The Stoics disagreed. They never asked you to amputate feeling. They asked you to govern it. Emotional restraint is not suppression. It's stewardship. Anger arrives. You feel it fully. In the heat of your neck, the quickness in your breath, the electricity in your hands, and then you choose your reply by your values, not by your spike. Panic visits, you feel its mouth at your ribs, and then you lengthen your exhale and return to the one controllable square foot in this universe, the space inside your skin. Joy arrives, and you let it bloom, without promising the room you'll supply endless fireworks. Authority's relationship with emotion is like a skilled rider with a powerful horse. Respect, attention, guidance. When the room tilts toward drama and you remain steady, the contrast commands attention. The team will begin to orient by your breath, not because you're aloof, because you're reliable. Epictetus warned that whoever angers you becomes your master. Emotional restraint quietly announces that no one owns you but you. It doesn't make you less human. It makes you trustworthy. All of this would be theater without the next move. Consistency. If people don't know which version of you is coming through the door, your posture, gaze and calm are props, not pillars. Authority is built with the boring mortar of kept promises. I'll send it by Thursday means it arrives Wednesday night or Thursday morning without a saga attached. I don't gossip means you withdraw your tongue even when gossip would make the meeting warmer. I train at 7 means you don't let the bedtime story of tomorrow tuck you into a relapse. Marcus Aurelius didn't write, "Argue about virtue." He wrote, "Be one." Consistency isn't glamorous, but it's magnetic. It tells the world that your words are expensive and your actions are not up for auction. You want a practical pathway? Create 3 visible agreements with yourself for this season. 1 for your craft, 1 for your body, 1 for your character. Write them. End the day with a yes, no on each. No essays. Keep more yeses than nos for 4 weeks and watch how people begin to treat your commitments like architecture rather than decorations. Listening is the next move, and I mean listening like a craft, not a pause between monologues. Most people don't listen, they reload. You will not. You will set down your weapon and receive the other person's meaning until you could argue their case clearly, even if you still disagree. This is not submission. This is sovereignty. The undisciplined mind fears that listening grants the other power. The disciplined mind knows it grants you data. When you repeat back what you heard, so your concern is A because of B, and you won't move until C is answered, you do 3 things at once. You lower the temperature of the room. You show respect without surrender. And you buy yourself the right to speak next with gravity. People stop bracing. They stop performing. They give you the truth because you have proven you can hold it. The Stoics prized truth like water. They did not care who carried the bucket as long as it arrived clean. If you want instant authority, make it safe for reality to enter the conversation. Constructive decisions follow. Economy of words belongs here, not as minimalism for its own sake, but as a sign of disciplined thinking. You'll feel the temptation to wrap ideas in lace so no one can be offended by their edges. Don't. Say less, say clearer, say once. It will scare the part of you that learned to survive by decorating your requests so they looked like favors. Good. Let that part be scared. You aren't being cruel, you're being concise. Authority respects other people's time enough to edit its sentences. It respects its own legitimacy enough not to drown its message in disclaimers. Try this today. Remove the paragraph in your email that exists to pre-apologize and start with the point. You can be warm and direct at the same time. You can be kind and exact at once. The more your words become clean tools instead of emotional camouflage, the more your presence becomes associated with progress. People will ask you fewer questions not because they fear you, but because you made the next step obvious. Preparation is the quiet engine behind all of this. Nothing radiates authority like the absence of scramble. Most rooms are symphonies of improvisation that confuse frenzy with brilliance. Be the person who arrives having thought, not just about your part, about theirs. You will anticipate the 3 concerns that could derail the plan and carry solutions that leave everyone's dignity intact. You will know the numbers not as ammunition, but as navigation. You will have run the rehearsal out loud, so your tongue has already made the journey once before. This doesn't make you stiff. It makes you spacious. Preparation buys you presence. Presence lets you adjust without panic. That is authority. People can feel when you've lifted the weight before you walked in. They relax into your leadership because you did the invisible labor in private. The Stoics would call this love of fate expressed as readiness, not trying to force the world to cooperate, but training yourself to meet it with calm competence when it doesn't. Your relationship with time amplifies or erodes everything else. Authority is not the rush of someone who overscheduled their dignity. Authority moves at a pace that tells the room, "We have what we need to do the next right thing." You show up when you said you would, because lateness declares your priorities with a megaphone. But you don't pace the hallway when a meeting starts late. You use those minutes to breathe, to refine your opening, to remind yourself of your governing line for the day. Under pressure, you don't speed up your voice to prove you understand urgency. You slow your articulation so decisions can stand on something sturdier than adrenaline. This is not slowness for show, it's cadence as leadership. The paradox is that by refusing to be rushed by time, you often help everyone move faster toward what matters. The Stoics taught attention to the present moment not as spirituality, but as strategy. You can only steer from here. Wear a watch if it helps. Use timers. Keep time visible. Then let your manner tell the truth. You own your minutes. They don't own you. All of this culminates in the move you cannot fake. Self-respect. Authority is downstream of the way you privately hold your life. If you treat your body like a dumpster for your stress, your boundaries like optional stickers, your sleep like a charity you donate to when convenient, your inner voice like an abusive manager, then no suit, script, or strategy will permanently add weight to your presence. People are exquisitely tuned to congruence. They can't articulate it, but they can feel when the external doesn't match the internal. The Stoics insisted on this alignment. Live in such a way that your reputation with yourself would impress you even if the world never sees the ledger. That means a handful of quiet practices that act like rebar in your life, choosing your first honest action the night before and keeping it, protecting one block of deep work from the teeth of distraction. Telling the truth once instead of shopping for the audience that will approve it. Ending your day with a 10-minute audit that closes loops without flogging you. Guarding your presence from gossip, cheap outrage, and the addiction to being right in rooms where being useful matters more. Self-respect is not an aesthetic, it's a daily law. Keep it, and you won't need to demand respect. You will become someone for whom respect is the natural response. Now, let's stitch these 10 moves into the fabric of a day so you can feel them working in sequence. You wake, and the first groggy impulse reaches for the phone. It isn't there. Last night's version of you, who respected you enough to plan for your morning weakness, left a notebook on the pillow instead. You sit. Feet flat. Spine long. Shoulders easy. Posture first. Mind follows. You write one line to govern the day. Steady and clear. You shower and dress not to impress, but to match your standard. Simple, clean, intentional. You step into the first meeting and a challenge arrives early. You meet eyes, not as a dare, but as an anchor. You say what needs saying and end where the period belongs. Silence. You let the room do its work. Someone tries to drag you into a side argument. Your breathing does not change. Let's return to the decision, you say calmly, once. Between meetings, you open your prep notes and scan the objections you predicted. 2 arrive. You were ready. You listen to the third. New, sharp, accurate. You summarize it better than it was delivered. The temperature drops. Given that, you say, and pivot. Time slides. Lunch is gone. You do not apologize to your body by punishing it. You eat something simple and drink water. At 3, someone gossips, thinking it will purchase your belonging. I don't talk about colleagues who aren't here, you reply, with the same softness you use to ask for a fork. You return to your deep block and move the 1 inch you promised yourself last night. At 6, you head home unrushed. You are tired, but it is the honest tired of someone who didn't perform panic all day. You close the night with the audit. What aligned, where you slipped, what you will change tomorrow by 1 degree. Sleep is now strategy, not a charity. That day doesn't trend on any platform. It builds something better, a reputation with yourself that leaks into the world as quiet authority. Now a word about pressure, because life will test every move here. A timid client, an angry boss, a sick child, a crisis that laughs at your calendar. The Stoic promise is not that storms won't come. It is that you can become the kind of person who doesn't capsize. On those days, reduce to essence. Posture becomes simple. Stand or sit where you can breathe. Eye contact becomes compassion. Look at the human, not the role. Pauses become efficient, short, clean, but still present. Emotional restraint becomes warmth with a spine. Consistency becomes the one agreement you won't break even when everything else breaks. Listening becomes triage. Gather the real facts and ignore the theater. Economy becomes a lifeline, one instruction at a time. Preparation becomes adaptability because you did your homework when the weather was quiet. Time becomes a tool. You decide the next hour and win that hour only. Self-respect becomes non-negotiable. You do not sell your standards for relief. You anchor the day in a single sentence if you must. We will act with courage and care. Then you act. There will be days you forget. You will overtalk. You will stare at your shoes. You will flood the silence with explanations and realize midway through that you are begging a room to carry a decision they hired you to make. You will rush, and your rush will multiply errors. When you catch it, don't build a monument to your failure. Build a bridge back to the move you dropped. I've said enough. Let's pause. Let me state this clearly. We'll return to the agenda. I missed our standard. Here's the repair. The fastest way to regain authority is to act like someone who doesn't need to be perfect to keep their word. The room will feel the difference. So will you. When these moves become your manner, life answers back in ways that are almost impolite in their simplicity. People interrupt you less because your periods hold. Meetings shorten because your preparation empties them of confusion. Requests get clearer because your listening made people brave enough to ask for what they actually need. Crises still arrive, but panic stops being your native language. Promotions, opportunities, and invitations will show up, yes, but more important than any of that is the peace that takes root in your chest. The quiet internal sentence, I can trust myself in rooms that used to scare me. Before we close, let me offer you a short field guide you can carry in your pocket, not as a list to memorize, but as a small set of reminders to touch when you step into a room. Inhabit your body first, meet eyes like a human, end at the period and let the air work. Choose breath over display when the heat rises. Keep your word until it keeps you. Listen like it's your job. Cut your sentences until they cut cleanly. Prepare until presence is cheap. Set the pace with manners, not drama. Live privately by the standard you want publicly. You'll forget. You'll remember. You'll repeat. And each repetition is a vote for the person you came here to be. Tomorrow morning, when you face the mirror, don't ask it for permission to be respected. Ask it for a report. Does the person reflected there live by laws that deserve authority? Not titles, not costumes, laws. If the answer is not yet, good. You have time and you have a path. Choose one move. Practice it quietly until it becomes unremarkable. Then add another. Stack 10 quiet laws inside your life until your presence does what microphones fail at. It makes people listen because you've become someone worth hearing. That is Stoicism. That is wisdom. And that is how, in a world addicted to noise, you will command authority without raising your voice.